It had been a busy day for a Thursday. Dean Coates had been the only doc on site for primary care. The nursing staff had just checked in the last patient of the day, and Dean was more than ready to wrap things up and go home. "Your last patient is in room 3. Her name is Anita. She's 22. Alex, the medical assistant, told him. "What's she here for?" "She wants your opinion on some labs." "Did we order them?" "No. She had them done somewhere else." "New patient." "Uh-huh. She lives in Ohio." "Ohio? What's she doing in California?" "I didn't ask. I thought you'd prefer I get her checked in." "Room 3. "Yep." He walked to room 3 on the far side of the clinic. Knocked once on the door, then stepped inside. She initially had her back to him as she was drying her hands. He smiled at her pretty sandy blonde hair. That was his favorite. She was slim and shapely. "Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Coates." She turned to him and smiled. His eyes widened when he saw her beautiful face. Perfectly shaped, hazel eyes, dimples, and perfect white teeth. Her smile was that of an angel. "You seem startled, Dr. Coates. You look very much like someone I knew a long time ago." "An old girlfriend?" "Yes, actually, she was." "How can I help you?" "I have a lab test I'd like your opinion on. Your regular doctor would be the best one for that. I did the test through a mail-in company and I don't have a regular doctor." "Go ahead and have a seat. Let's see what it is." She sat in the chair near the exam table and reached in her purse. He sat on the end of the exam table near her. The young woman handed him an envelope. The return sender was 23andMe. He was familiar with the company and had even had testing done there. He removed the papers from the envelope and looked at the first page. "It's pretty straightforward. They tested DNA in your saliva to give you an idea of your family lineage. I had mine done too. Look at the last page. That's the part I'm wondering about." He turned to the 4th page and began looking at the list of relatives. When he saw his name, he was taken aback. But when he saw the relationship, his jaw dropped. "It must be another Dean Coates." "I don't think so. It was Dean Coates 7221. I checked with the website. It's you." "Then it's probably a mistake." "You said I look like an old girlfriend," she said. "How old are you, Anita?" 22. "The last time I saw that girl was 27 years ago and we never had sex." "Sorry." "Okay, so let's assume it is a mistake. How could we find out for sure?" "Have a parentage DNA test. That would answer the question definitively." "Is there a place that can do that around here?" she asked. 12 miles north of us. Same-day service, I hear." "Would you be willing to do that?" "Yes, Anita, I would. If I have a daughter, I'd like to know." "When can you go with me?" "I'm only in town until Wednesday. I'm off tomorrow." "Hold on a second. I'll be right back." She nodded and he went to the front desk. "Rhonda, cancel the visit on this last patient. It wasn't a clinical issue." "Anita Reynolds? What did you say her name was?" "Anita Reynolds, that's the patient in 3. "Yeah, that one. Call Alex and let her know we're all done and she's free to leave." "Okay." He went back to the room. "Anita, who is your mother?" "Carol Reynolds." "Did she live in a children's home?" "The same one you did." "Anita, I remember your mother very well, but she and I never had sex. That's what Mom told her sister." "Sarah?" "Aha. Has your mother seen these results?" "No. I've asked many times who my father is. She gets mad every time and refuses to tell me." "Let's get the test done. I'd like to get to the bottom of this mystery. Where are you staying?" "I'll pick you up in the morning," he asked. "I took an Uber here from the Reading airport. Any place you'd recommend?" He thought for a moment. "I have plenty of room at my house if you'd be all right with that." "Are you sure I wouldn't be an inconvenience?" "It's a fairly good-size house. No trouble at all. I don't cook much, so we'd have to eat out." "No problem here." He stood and tore the wrinkled paper off the exam table and replaced it. "I've never seen a doctor do that before," she said. "The staff takes good care of me. I try to help when I can." "Do you have a bag with you?" "The girl at the desk has it." "Let's grab that and go to the back so I can close out the computer." He picked up her bag and they walked to his office. "Have a seat." Takes about 5 minutes. He sat at the computer and closed his notes, checked messages, then logged out. They left and went to his truck. He held the door for her as she got in, then put her bag in the back seat and got in himself. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "I really am. Do you like Mexican food?" "Love it. I know just the place." When they arrived, he got out and opened her door, then took her hand as she climbed down. At the restaurant, he held the door again. "Are you always such a gentleman?" "I try. It's how I was raised. Old-fashioned, I guess." "Manners are never old-fashioned. Did you open doors for my mom too?" "Always," he said with a distant smile. They were shown to a table, and once again he used his manners by helping her with her chair. She smiled. "I don't think anyone's ever done that with the chair before." "That's a shame. It really is." He sat across from her. The server brought them water and menus, then took their drink orders. Both looked over the menus. "What do you recommend, Doc?" "I've had pretty much everything on the menu. Everything is good. It's real Mexicans that own and operate the restaurant." She looked back at the menu and a moment later noticed him looking at her. "You're staring," she said. "Sorry, I guess I was." "Why, Doc?" "If you'll quit calling me Doc, I'll tell you." "What would you like me to call you? Dean or D?" "Your mother always called me D. Never Dean unless she was mad at me." "May I call you D then?" "Sure. The reason I was staring is because of how much you look like you mom. She doesn't have dimples, but otherwise it's uncanny." "I must have gotten the dimples from you." The server brought their drinks and took their orders. "Anita, about the DNA, it's just not possible. The last time I saw your mom was 27 years ago, 5 years before you were born. I lived in Illinois when you were conceived. I've never donated sperm, and your mom and I never had sex. Trust me, I'd remember that." Anita chuckled. "How long were you and mom a couple?" 3 years. "Why'd you break up?" "That's a long story. Let's just say I broke a promise." "Did you cheat on her?" "No. I would never have done that, but she thought I did." "So, what was the promise you broke?" "I've never told this to anyone. She and I and several other couples snuck out one night for a makeout session. While we were talking, I promised I'd never leave her and that I'd love her forever. The next day, I ran away from the home. That was a pretty shitty thing to do. I had a good reason. Would you mind sharing that?" "Someone ratted us out on the date. Punishment for doing that was a beating with a leather strap and 30 days on restriction. If they caught everyone involved, that's what they all got. If they couldn't catch everyone, they'd cool off in a couple of days and skip the beatings. You still got restriction, but I ran away so they wouldn't beat her." "Couldn't you come back?" "I tried. And, Anita, this has to stay between you and I." "Why?" "First, she'd never believe it if she heard it. Second, she loved the administrators involved like fathers, and they loved her. I knew a different side of those men, a side that was bad. I'd rather let her keep the good memories of them than being responsible for giving her any more bad memories than I already have. Does that make sense?" "Yes. So why didn't you come back?" "My father brought me back 2 days later. I was taken to the dean's office, Mr. Worth. He said I could come back, but if I did, they would take your mom to the hospital for AD and see to make sure she wasn't pregnant. I told them we'd never had sex. He said that didn't matter. They'd do it anyway. I pleaded with him. He finally relented and said that if I'd leave for good, they wouldn't do it. I couldn't let them do that to her. I chose to leave." "You left to protect her?" "Yes. They told her I didn't love her and chose not to come back." "Why didn't you tell her the truth?" "They wouldn't let me see her and put out a restraining order to keep me off the grounds until my youngest brother graduated. He was 6 at the time. I saw my sister Debbie about a month later. She was your mom's best friend. She was so pissed at me. The superintendent had one of the boys tell your mom I was cheating on her. I wasn't, but she fell for the lie. My sister's boyfriend even overheard the guy telling his buddies what the superintendent had him do. Debbie told Carol, but she didn't believe it. She trusted the superintendent and the dean." "Why was your sister so pissed at you?" "For choosing to leave for good." "But they blackmailed you." "She didn't know that. You're the first person I've ever told." "And you never saw mom again?" "About 3 months after I left, I went to the town where the home was. I knew from Debbie she'd be in town. I had every intention of telling her. She refused to look at me or talk to me. When I followed her out of the drugstore, she told a cop I was following her. He told me to leave town or he'd put me in jail. I never tried to see her again. Dee, is this all true? Every word of it. I have nothing to gain by lying. I told you today because I wanted someone to know what really happened. I think you should tell her. To this day, I'd wager she'd be the same as she was in the drugstore. Anita, we genuinely loved each other, and as far as she knows, I cheated on her and ran out on her. You don't do that to someone you love. But, Dee, that's not what happened. It would be my word against the two officers. She'd never believe the truth unless they told her. One's dead and the other one would never admit what happened. The server brought the food, and during dinner they were quiet. While waiting on the check, Anita asked, "Are you and Mom really soulmates?" "Yes, I'm sure we are." "Then she still loves you." "No, she hates me." "If she didn't love you, she would have written the hate off years ago." I wish I could believe that. But unless Mr. Worth were to tell her the truth, she would never believe it. Let's just let sleeping dogs lie. There's no point in waking them. Oh, I don't know. You both love each other and you're both single. Dean chuckled. You're wasting your time. It isn't going to happen. The server brought the check. After paying it, they walked to the car and began the 8-mile drive to his house. After about 4 miles of 2-lane winding mountain road, Anita chuckled. You really live in the boonies. It's actually in a nice, gated community. You just have to do 6 miles of boonies to get to it. When they finally got to the gate, she was impressed. The mountain on your left is Mt. Shasta. Straight ahead is Mt. Lassen and Broke-Off Mountain. All dormant volcanoes. Not extinct. Nope, Lassen erupted about 100 years ago. Many of these lava rocks in the yards are remnants of that. Shasta is about 1,000 years past due for eruption, but there's no indication she'll wake up soon. The community has its own airfield over here to the left. Dee, this is beautiful. Beautiful is about a mile ahead when we start into the valley. As they came over the ridge looking over the valley, she gasped at the beauty. The valley was beautiful pastures with mountains on 3 sides. A large river ran twisting from the left to the right. There was a lake visible ahead of them and very pretty homes throughout the area below around the lake. Welcome to Lake California. He slowed the truck. Keep your eyes open. There are often deer in this area. As they went around the bend, the deer were standing in the road. There were about a dozen of them. As they neared, the deer slowly moved out of the way. About 100 yards farther, they met a second herd that did the same. Horse stables to our left. Country club ahead on the right there on the lake. Gorgeous. What river is that? Sacramento River. It's the water supply for much of California's breadbasket. Dee, this is beautiful. Yes, it is. When they got to the T intersection at the lake, he turned left, then right into a cul-de-sac, then right into the drive of the first house. It was an adobe style and looked small. They went in through the garage. They entered through a laundry room and stepped into a hallway. My room is down the hall to the left. The rest of the house is to the right. As they left the hall, they entered the foyer and turned right. 2 bedrooms here with a bath between them. Take your pick. The one on the left has the best view. She looked at both, and when she looked out the window with the view, she grinned. Dee, there are deer right outside the window. They come through in the morning, around 1 and again late afternoon. Do you feed them? No, it's important they stay independent. Are you a big deer fan? I'm a nature lover. Then you're going to love the backyard. They left the bedroom and stepped into the great room. The entire back wall of the house was glass and overlooked the lake. On the right was the living area with an adobe-style fireplace. To the left was a chef's kitchen with a large island bar, and behind that were more kitchen cabinets than she'd ever seen. Toward the lake from the kitchen was a small round table and 4 chairs. The sliding doors to outside were just beyond that. Can we go outside? Sure. It's probably not locked. She slid the door open and stepped outside. The porch was tiled and at least 12 feet deep. The center 12 by 12 was covered and screened in with 2 chairs and a table facing the beautiful lake. The right side was filled with planters of both flowers and vegetables. The other side had a patio table with an umbrella and beyond that a covered fire pit. Leading down from there was a walkway to the dock. Oh my God, this is heaven. Let's walk down to the dock. I'll introduce you to a couple of the neighbors. They walked down and stood on the floating dock. Look way over there to the right. See the egret? Over on the dock by the pontoon boat is a great blue heron. Just past that, on the next dock, there's a family of otters playing. The logs to our left and right are covered with turtles. There are also coyotes in the area. That's why the special screen on the patio. Sometimes in the evening, the cows down the road start mooing. That's from the bear. He never comes over here though. About 3 blocks from here is a waterfowl sanctuary. It has trails and an eagle's nest. Tons of different types of birds too. You'll hear the owls later. This place is crawling with life. I thought places like this only existed in books. So, did I for most of my life. Then I finally realized that peace, like happiness, comes from within us. Learn that and choose it, then you'll discover the beauty of life all around you. Can you swim in the lake? You can if you don't mind an occasional bump into a bluegill. There's also a pool at the country club. Mom would love it here. She'd either be fishing or at the pool all the time. I knew she loved swimming. It was at the pool when I asked her what her name was. That was when I saw those amazing eyes of hers. I didn't know about the fishing. That wasn't an activity the boys and girls did together at the home. How did you meet? In a grocery store when we were 4 was the first time. I assumed you met at the home. We met again at the home. Tell me please? She asked. For some reason, my mom took my siblings and I to a grocery store in Columbus. We lived near Dayton. As we went down an aisle, we passed your mom and her mother. I was smitten. After my mom led us down another aisle, I went back to look for your mom. Apparently, she came looking for me too. I asked her to marry me and she agreed but said we'd have to wait until we were big. She said we'd have 1 girl baby. We held hands and skipped the length of the store laughing. Your grandmother found us and took me back to my mom. Carol and I both cried when my mom took me away. My mom told me this story. She invited you to come and live at her house. She did. Did it really happen, or is it something you talked about later? She and I never talked about it. I didn't connect the girl to your mom until about 10 years ago. That's wild. When did you see her again? The day after I arrived at the home. I was standing outside the softball field near third base watching a co-ed game. She rode up on a palomino. I complimented her on how pretty the horse was. She said thanks. Then I said, prettier rider. She blushed and rode away. So what happened at the pool? All the high school kids had jobs at the home. In the mornings I took little kids on pony rides. In the afternoon and evening I lifeguard. At 14. Yeah, I got my Red Cross certification when I was 12 at summer camp. The junior high girls were swimming. Someone asked me to help her out of the pool. I looked over. It was her. He chuckled. She was standing right next to the ladder and could have gotten out easily, but I helped her anyway. I melted when I saw those eyes. We talked for a few minutes and swapped names. She already knew who I was. She and my sister were in the same dorm. A couple of days later, my sister introduced us at town hall. We were an item from that day until I left 3 years later. Anita had watched his expressions as he related the events to her. It was obvious he was loving reliving the memories. Let's go to the screened porch. The mosquitoes like it here too, he suggested. They walked back up the ramp and sat on the patio. You and Mom were in different grades at school? Yeah, I started first grade a year before she did, and she got held back in either first or second. She was a lousy speller, he chuckled. She still is. Smart woman. Loves to read but can't spell worth a darn. Yep, that's Carol. So, what did you do after you left the home? Lived with my dad for a couple of months, then got my own place. Graduated high school, then went to work in a print shop. I joined the Air Force a couple of years later. They sent me to med school. After my commitment was up, I moved to Texas. 3 years ago, I moved out here. That's about it. Why Texas? Too much snow in Ohio. Doesn't it snow here? About once a year here, but if you go 20 miles north, it's worse than Ohio. What are summers like here? Hot but less humid than Texas. Spring comes in February and winters are mild and short. I love the climate. Sounds like the perfect location. Almost. Forest fires are an every summer problem. We have at least one smoky month every summer. It seems pretty safe in the valley though. In another month, all the tall green grass you saw will be tall brown grass. Fire spreads through that at whatever the wind speed is. Last year, there was a fire that started just west of Redding. That's about 15 miles. The wind changed to the south and in 2 hours it was about 6 miles from here. That was pretty intense. There's only one road in and out of here and it's 2 lanes through the forest. You could be trapped? If it were to spread to the area of that road, we would be. That's scary. We're a lot more likely to die in a car crash than a fire. I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over it. So, when I checked you out online, said you've never been married. How come? You checked up on me? I wanted to find out about my dad. So, what did you find out? You're exactly 3 weeks younger than my mom. Graduated high school a month after you turned 17. 10 years in the Air Force. Graduated from the University of Nebraska School of Medicine. You have a 20% disability from the VA. Worked several years in North Texas before relocating to Northern California. 5 brothers and sisters. Parents are deceased. Never been arrested. Conservative in your politics. And never been married. Pretty thorough. You still never answered my question. I asked your mom to marry me twice. She said yes both times. I'm waiting on her. You've waited 27 years? What can I say? I'm a patient man. Surely you've dated? I mean, look at you, handsome, smart, successful. You've probably had women chasing you. I wouldn't call it chasing exactly, but yes, I've dated. Nothing serious or long-term though. Mom really stole your heart, didn't she? Anita, I love Carol as much today as I did when we were teenagers at the home. She didn't steal it. I gave it to her. Tears formed in Anita's eyes. Do you like karaoke? I like watching it but not actually singing, Anita replied. It's karaoke night at the country club. Wanna go? Yeah, I'd like that. What's the dress? Casual. I'm gonna go change into my jeans. Okay. Give me 15 minutes to freshen up. You've got it. They both went to their rooms. Dean showered and dressed in a sports shirt and jeans. Anita put on an Aussie t-shirt and jeans, then joined him in the great room. It's about 4 blocks. Are you okay with walking? We're safe from the bear? Completely safe. Let's walk, she replied. The karaoke had just started. They ordered drinks and found a table far enough away from the speakers to talk. Several people sang. Some good, some not so good, but they all were having fun. Do you sing? She asked. Occasionally. Will you sing tonight? On one condition. I get to sing to you. Deal. He walked to the DJ and handed him a note, then came back to the table. About 20 minutes later, the DJ called him up. He stood and took Anita's hand. Oh no, I'm not singing, she said. You promised I could sing to you. You need to be sitting on the stage for that. Okay. But don't expect me to join in. You're an Ozzy fan, right? I am. They started toward the stage. In honor of Ozzy, I thought I'd sing Laguna Sunrise. That's an instrumental. Oh yeah, I guess I'll have to pick another song. They stepped onto the stage. He had Anita sit on a stool. When the music began, Dean held her hand and began the song. She was mesmerized. He got a big hand when he finished and walked her back to the table. Why never, my love, Dee? In high school, I sang in a band. One evening at a dance, I sat your mom on the edge of the stage and sang it to her just like I did you. That's Mom's favorite song in the world. Sometimes she listens to it over and over. Anita, that was our song, he said with a soft smile. What did she do when you sang it to her? Blushed at first. Then when she realized what was happening, she cried through the whole song. When she listens to it, she cries sometimes. I never knew why. That was a special time for both of us. Dee, she still loves you. We've got to find a way to tell her the truth. Anita, in the process we'd hurt her. I've already hurt her enough for one lifetime. An older couple joined them at the table. Shelley, Jeff, this is Anita. Anita, This is Shelley and her lesser half Jeff. They exchanged greetings. Dean, I love it when you sing, but tonight was really something special. Please share. Shelley pleaded. Anita is the daughter of my first love back in high school. When I was 16, I sang it to her mother. Doc, you could feel the love. That was a beautiful moment. Anita looks just like her mom did. Somewhere in there I traveled back in time. Dean, this needs healing. Anita, do you have something of your mother's I could borrow? I'll get it back to you in a few days. Anita looked through her purse, then took a ring off her keyring. She handed it to Shelley. Can I see that? Dean asked. She handed it to him. It's a real diamond. She gave it to me on my 16th birthday. Anita told them. I remember this. I gave it to her on her 16th birthday. He took it away from her. Who did? Anita asked. The superintendent. I wondered if she ever got it back. Sometimes when she would be listening to Never My Love, she'd hold it and look at it, but she never put it on. She always cried when she did it. Anita told him. Dean handed Shelley the ring. Give me a date range of when you gave it to her so I'll know where to target, Shelley told him. 7:30 p.m. on November 14th, 1966. Give or take 5 minutes, he replied. Ohio time. Shelley chuckled. Is that when you put it on her finger? He nodded. This is perfect. I'll drop it by your house tomorrow or Saturday. Thanks. If I'm not home, just put it on the island. She and Jeff stood. Gotta run. Early session tomorrow. They left after hugs. What was that all about? Anita asked. Shelley is a Reiki healer. She says that with Reiki you can not only heal what's going on today, but you can heal the past. By holding your mom's ring, she can connect with her in the past and help heal old wounds. Do you believe that? I believe there's a lot more to the human condition than what science tells us. The important thing is Shelley believes it. They left a short time later and walked back to the house. Both were quiet, deep in their thoughts. Dean remembered his Carol box that he had saved for all these years and remembered the note he had saved from so long ago. He would look for it later to show Anita. They sat on the screened patio listening to the sounds of the night. The otters were playing out by the dock. They couldn't see them on that moonless dark night, but they could hear them. Have you ever seen the Milky Way? He asked. No, I didn't realize you could without a telescope. Come with me. He walked her down the ramp away from the house and stopped just at the beginning of the dock, then pointed skyward. There it was, looking like a faint gray-white mist across the star-covered sky, as clear as if she were looking at it from space. Wow, that's impressive. It's even more impressive when you realize you aren't actually seeing what it looks like now. The light we see now left those stars a long time ago. Most hundreds or thousands of years ago. We're looking into the past with each one. They estimate around 100 billion stars in the galaxy spread out over millions of miles, and we're just seeing the brighter ones. Between us and those stars we can see Mars, the red one, over there. Saturn not far behind, and straight overhead is Jupiter. Even the planets we see are what they looked like in the past. The Saturn we see was over an hour ago. One day mankind will travel to those places. Will do things that will change their future, but their past will remain as it is. We can't change that any more than we can change our own pasts. We accept it and make changes today that affect tomorrow. If you're leading up to telling me to leave you and Mom in the past, you dropped the ball. How so? You said accept the past. Make changes today that affect the future. If I can show Mom that what she experienced in the past was a pack of lies that could trigger change in the future of all of us. Change for the better. You have a beautiful life. You obviously love what you do, and based on the reviews you have online, you're good at it. You live in a beautiful place, but you're alone. The woman you love lives 2,500 miles away. She's still in love with you too, and she's just as lonely as you are. You said you choose to be happy. D, you're lying to yourself. You aren't happy. You've adjusted to a loveless life and call yourself happy. That's acceptance, not happiness. She's doing the same thing. She exists just like you. It's time you both experience life, and as soulmates you should be doing that together. Anita, you have no idea how many times I've tried to think of a way to do just that. The obstacle is truth. My truth and hers are different. And that guy, Mr. Worth, is the one person that she would listen to and believe the truth. He's the key, isn't he? Yeah, I suppose he is. The superintendent's wife, Beth Tucker, knows the truth too. But Worth was the only actual person who knows firsthand. Dee, there's a way. I can feel it. Anita, I'm begging you. Please don't do anything to hurt your mom. In the dark, Anita couldn't see his tears, but she knew he was crying. I won't hurt her. I'm gonna go to bed now. I'll see you in the morning. Anita put her arms around him. They held each other for a long time, not speaking. He stayed outside alone after she went inside. Once inside, he went around and locked all the doors. When he was alone, he had never been concerned about it. Now there was this precious young woman sleeping there, and her security mattered. He turned off lights as he went through and went to his bedroom. There was a wooden tea box he had picked up in Japan that sat in the back corner of his closet. He carried it to his bed and removed the lid. Dean removed the manila envelope inside and emptied the contents on the bed. The papers were all notebook pages and folded to pocket size and yellowed with time. As carefully as if he was opening a treasured relic, he unfolded the first. It read, I love you too, Carol. He smiled, folded it again, and opened the second. Dee, I love the ring. It's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me. Except your love. When I got back to the dorm after town hall, Mr. Tucker was waiting for me. He's worried that Samio, and he might steal it. He's gonna keep it in his safe for me for special occasions. Please don't be mad, he's just keeping it safe. I love you with all my heart. This was the best birthday ever. Carol. It had made him mad. He knew Tucker didn't want them together and often went out of his way to keep them apart, just like Mr. Worth did. He was glad Carol had gotten it back and had given it to Anita. The third note was the one he was looking for, and he set it aside to show her tomorrow. He put the envelope back in the box, then set the box at the foot of his picture wall. Dean looked at the pictures for a long time, then finally undressed and went to bed. Lying there, he thought about Anita. He wished so much she could be his daughter, but it was physically impossible. When Dean got up Friday morning, he went through his usual morning routine of shower, shave, etc. He dressed and put the note from the night before in his pocket, then went to the kitchen. Anita was sitting at the table looking outside. Good morning. Would you like some coffee? Good morning. I was going to make coffee, but I couldn't find a coffee maker. I use a coffee press. Want a cup? Sure. He made the coffee and brought it to her. Cream or sugar? No thanks. I take mine straight, just for future reference. Mom puts 2 packs of stevia in hers. Thanks. I'll remember that. How did you sleep? That is the most comfortable bed in the world. I have the same mattress on all 3 beds. I love it. What kind of mattress is it? She asked. Purple. She gave him an odd look. That's the name, Purple Mattress. Weird. What color is it? Purple. I guess it makes sense. When are we going for the tests? I thought we'd leave in about 30 minutes, have breakfast and go from there. Will we get results today? Their website says tests done before 11 can be picked up at 3. I hope the test results are the same as what I have. I'd love for you to be my father. I'd love that too, but there's no way I can be. I'll make you a deal. What? Regardless of the results, you can still be my daughter and I'll be your dad. Anita smiled. Offer accepted, Dad. Dean smiled. He had been called many things in his life, but never Dad. Felt good. Somehow it felt right. Anita's cell phone rang. She looked at the caller ID, then put her finger to her lips to shush him. She answered and put it on speaker. Hi, Mom. Hi, baby girl, she replied. Dean knew the voice even after not hearing it in 27 years. It was soft and sultry, a little deeper than you would have expected to hear. What's up? Anita asked. I'm going shopping today. I was hoping you'd join me. I wish I could, but I'm out of town until Wednesday, Anita replied. Where are you? Cottonwood, California. Where in heaven's name is that? West coast of the US. It's a big place. Runs from Oregon to... I know where California is, smarty pants. Where is Cottonwood? Do you know where Redding is? Yes, up north by the redwoods. It's about 15 miles south of there. Okay. Why are you in Cottonwood, California? Checking things out. It's beautiful here, Mom. You should see it. Next time invite me before you go. What's so beautiful about it? The place I'm staying is in a beautiful valley between Mt. Shasta and Mt. Lassen. The Sacramento River runs right through the valley. There's wildlife everywhere. Last night I was standing by the lake and saw the Milky Way. It sounds beautiful. But don't you miss the cornfields? Not a bit. I miss you, but other than that, the view I want to see of Ohio is in my rearview mirror. I knew you'd want to leave one day. If I were younger, I'd probably leave too. Mom, you say that like you're an old lady. I am an old lady. Mom, you're 43. That's old, Anita. It is not. I went to karaoke last night. You'll never guess what song I heard. Oh Lord. It's hard to be humble? No. A guy sat a girl on a stool and sang Never My Love to her. There was silence on the line. Mom, are you there? I'm here. I got distracted. Was he a good singer? Very good. It reminded me of you and how you used to look at the ring you gave me. Where'd you get the ring? Someone gave it to me a long time ago on my birthday. A boy. Well, of course, a boy. Who else gives a 16-year-old girl a diamond ring? Was it an engagement ring? Anita, I was 16. It was a birthday present. That's quite a gift at 16. Yes, it was a very special gift. Boyfriend, obviously? Obviously, Carol replied. Who was he? His name was Dean. So, what else are you going to do in California? More sightseeing. Dean what? It was a long time ago. I don't remember. A boy gives you a diamond ring on your birthday and you don't remember his name? Gimme a break, Mom. What was it? Coates. His name was Dean Coates. You've never mentioned him before, Mom. This is all too weird. I dreamt about him last night. Always before, when I thought about him, it made me cry, but last night it reminded me of how he always made me feel. How was that? Loved, Anita. Totally and completely loved. I dreamed about the evening when he gave me the ring and how it felt when he put it on my finger and the love I felt looking into his beautiful brown eyes. That song you heard last night. Never My Love? Yes. 2 weeks before he gave me the ring, we had a Halloween party. Dee was the singer in the band. Dee. I always called him Dee. I only called him Dean when I was mad at him over some foolish nothing. Anyway, he sat me on the edge of the stage and held my hand, then sang that song to me. I cried like a baby. I knew he meant every word and would never stop loving me. So what happened? He left the home the next spring after telling me the day before he'd never leave me. I knew why he left and expected him back in a day or two, but he never came back. A few days later, I found out he had been seeing a girl from town. That must have hurt. I was devastated. We were going to get married after high school. When he left, he took my heart with him. Have you seen him since he left? A couple of months later, he showed up in a drugstore. He begged me to talk to him. There was something he needed to tell me. I wouldn't even look at him. I knew I'd start crying if I did. When I left the drugstore, he followed outside. I told a cop he was following me. I guess he left town. Did you ever see him again? About 4 years later. I saw him, but he didn't see me. He was in the Air Force then. So where is he now? Last I heard, he had just graduated from med school and was moving to Japan. His sister Debbie told me that. Mom, you're single now. Why don't you see if you can track him down? Anita, I did something to get back at him for hurting me. Part of it worked, but part of it backfired. I could never face him after what I did. Mom, you still love him. I'll always love him. My God, I haven't admitted that to myself in 27 years. I still could never face him. I would have to tell him what I did. I'm not brave enough to do that. What did you do? Anita, if I told you that you'd hate me too, I could never hate you. I'm not willing to take that chance. So, you're coming home Wednesday? Yeah, late. My car's at the airport. I'll see you Thursday. I love you, baby girl. I love you too, Mom. She pushed the button ending the call. Dean was deep in thought. Anita, when is your birthday? April 1st, 73. He looked at the calendar. Were you full term? I was about a month premature. Why? Just curious. Ready to go to breakfast? I'm ready. They went to breakfast and then to the office for testing and told to come back between 3 and 4 for the results. Anything you'd specifically like to see? How far are we from the ocean? 3 hours each way. How about we go there tomorrow? We'll have all day, he asked. I didn't bring a swimsuit. You won't need one. I'm not going to a nude beach. He started laughing. That wasn't what I meant. The Pacific is cold up here in the spring. You'd freeze your fanny off in the water this time of year. I thought California was sunshine, warm beaches and movie stars. That's Southern California. This is Northern California. If I'm going to the beach in California, I have to go in the water. Did you bring sweats? No. Then you need a swimsuit and sweats to put on as soon as you get out. You won't stay in the water long. I'm an Ohio girl. I'm used to the cold, right? Ohio girls have sense enough not to swim in cold water. Have you ever seen the giant redwoods? No. They're over there too. You can thaw out on the way to see those. We'll see. The town of Mt. Shasta is about an hour from here. Great views, lots of shops and things to see. We could do that today. Then pick up your swimsuit and sweats after we get the results. Then have a nice dinner to celebrate our results. You sound like you think it's possible. I suspect I am your father. We'll see. What changed your mind? Something your mom said. If I'm right, I'll explain it after the results. Did you hear her say she'll always love you? I did. It made my day. Oh, I almost forgot. Read this. He handed her the notebook paper. She unfolded it and began reading. My wonderful darling Dee, I had a dream last night. I always thought we would have a daughter. She would have black hair, dimples, and brown eyes. I was wrong. She's gonna look like me, but with gorgeous dimples like you. She'll have your sense of humor, God forbid, and will be smarter than both of us. We'll call her Anita after my mom. Just thought you should know. I'm wearing strawberry lipstick tonight, so I hope you sneak a kiss or two at town hall. I love you. Your future forever wife, Carol. XXO. W. Ow. How could she have nailed it so accurately? No clue, but she did. Did you notice the date? She looked at the date. Oh my God. My birthday 7 years before I was born. Dean started humming the Twilight Zone song. Anita was laughing. It's just meant to be, Dad. Maybe so, he replied, smiling. Why do you think she's suddenly willing to talk about you? I suspect it has something to do with Shelley and her Reiki. If not, I'm clueless. Whatever caused it, bless you, Anita said. The drive to Shasta was pretty. Anita's first time ever seeing mountains was on the flight to California. The town itself was quiet. They enjoyed the shops and picked up a few small items, then had a light lunch before heading back to Redding. It was very unceremonious. Dean was simply handed an envelope. Anita grabbed it. Let's open it outside. If I cry, I'd rather do it there, Dean said. You think you'll cry? She asked. Probably, he replied, sitting on a bench under a tree. Which way? Yes or no? Probably both. If no, because I'm sad. If yes, because I'm happy. She opened the envelope and looked at the paper. Her expression never changed. In the case of Anita Reynolds, Dean quotes you. I what? Commercial break. That's how they always do it on TV. Anita, please? You are my father. Anita began crying as she handed him the paper. They held each other with both crying for several minutes. I love you, Anita. You're my daughter. You're my dad. I love you too. They got back in the truck and headed toward the mall. So, what did Mom say that changed your mind? When she saw me in the Air Force, she said it was about 4 years later. She saw me, but I didn't see her. I hadn't been in Ohio in over 2 years. You were born April 1st, 1 month premature. So, you were conceived when? Around September 1st the year before. Around Labor Day. I had a party at my house and someone put something in my drink. The following morning there was lubricant on my you-know-what. You were raped. I doubt that, but I'd wager my sperm was taken. Dad, that's still rape. Anita. Can you picture your mom ever doing something like that? No, that's just not like her. I agree. Someone else collected it and didn't tell her how. If she thought it was being collected illegally, she never would have done it. I lived on base, so whoever collected it was military. Does your mom have any female friends that were in the service? Doris was in the Navy. I think Aunt Mo was in too. Mo for Monique? Yes. Monique Bob. Yeah, that's her. You know her. She's the one that collected the specimen for your mom. I'm not following you here. Mo worked for me in the Air Force. For about 6 weeks all was well. She went on a leave for a week, and when she returned, I was the scum of the earth to her. Monique requested a transfer and was moved to the fertility clinic. She probably assisted in artificial insemination there. I had parties at my house occasionally, but Mo only came to one. That was the Labor Day party where I was drugged. I suspect she collected the sperm and artificially inseminated your mom. You put all that together from her Air Force for years later and you didn't see her comments? Dean laughed. The pieces just fell together. In all likelihood, your mom thought I donated the specimen. Part of what she feels guilty about is when she found out how Monique really got it. What would be the rest of guilt? If I'm right about the first part, you'll have to get the rest from her. That would be speculation on my part. So, you don't think mom raped you or even knew you were raped? I think she found out after she was pregnant. Why would she have taken your sperm to get pregnant anyway? You read her note. You, my beautiful daughter, were meant to be. Carol and I were to be the parents. But she said it was to get back at you. I don't think she believed that any more than we do. She's not the vindictive type. You get raped. Mom gets pregnant from it. Has your daughter but doesn't tell you for 22 years and you aren't even a little angry? Your mom took something of mine and made a miracle with it. I suspect she wanted to tell me many times but just couldn't. She gave me you, Anita. We're sitting here trying to figure out how she pulled off a miracle. I'll never ask her how or why. I'm just thrilled she did. How about the rest of the story? The part that backfired. I think if she ever tells that it'll be to me or us together. That'll be the hard part. She knows that if she ever faces me, she'll have to tell it. So even if Mr. Worth does tell her the truth, I still have to convince her to see you. Dad, you're making this harder, not easier. Sorry. I told you already it wasn't going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen, all right. I just haven't figured out how. They arrived at the mall. Dean was a relative newcomer to shopping with a woman and enjoyed watching Anita browse the racks. Pick up 40 items, then put all but one back before repeating the process on the next rack. It didn't matter. He was with his daughter. Little else mattered either. She picked up 2 swimsuits and 2 pairs of sweats along with a cover-up and sandals for the beach. They headed back to the house. Anita went to put her things away and he went to the kitchen for a Diet Coke. The ring and a note were laying on the island. Good thing I knew where your secret key was. Here's the ring. I did the Reiki last night. Got good feelings from it. Peace, happiness, and love. Shelley. Anita, would you like something to drink? He called. What do you have? Most everything. Ice water, please. He was halfway to her room with it when she yelled, with lemon. Dean walked back to the kitchen, sliced a lemon, and put the wedge on the rim of the glass. When he got to Anita's room, she grinned. I didn't really want the lemon. I just wanted to see if you would do it. Now you know, he replied, smiling. Thank you, that was really sweet. You're welcome. Anything else? I would have gotten you a lemon too. I know, but that wasn't why I got the lemon. Then why did you? You asked for it. I had one. Easy fix. Now if you had asked for cantaloupe, you'd have been out of luck. I don't have any. You got it because that's just how you are? Basically, yes. Was this a test of some sort? You're willing to go out of your way for other people, aren't you? If I can make something better or simpler for someone, it makes me feel good. It does you too. And Mom, there are a lot of people who wouldn't have gotten the lemon. Anita, most people wouldn't have offered you a drink in the first place. I'm glad you're my dad. I am too, he replied, smiling. How about steak for dinner? How about steak, lobster, and champagne? I'm celebrating. I know just the place. Business casual. Time. I'll go change. Let me know when you're ready. Okay. Dean went and changed, then sat on the foot of the bed looking at the wall. Thank you, Carol. She's amazing. Anita reminds me of you. Beautiful, smart, funny, loving. I suspect she's a better speller. Who are you talking to, Dad? Your mom. Come here. He patted the bed next to him. Anita sat and then noticed the wall. Why do you have a wall full of pictures of Mom? They keep me focused. On what? Love. Every picture holds a special memory of our time together. She walked to the wall. What's this one? She was working in the dining room. I always knew when she was there. She always folded my napkin in a special way. If you look closely, you can see the hairnet she had to wear. And this one. Date night. She was in the 8th grade and only the high school grades could date. When the movie was over, she would run around to the side of the chapel. We would meet there and kiss. She's running to me. How about the empty couch? We talked about how we would furnish our house when we got married. After I left, I furnished my house exactly as we had planned. That's the French provincial couch. Are the dishes the same thing? Aha. Single gold stripe around the dishes and roses on the handle of the silverware. When did you do this wall? I started doing it everywhere I lived after I left the home. And the furnishings. I got rid of those when I went in the Air Force. Do you talk to her a lot? Most every day. If I'm troubled, more often. You've had a lonely life, Dad. Anita. I've had an amazing life and your mother was with me every step of the way. She kept me going. I'm kind of surprised you haven't asked much about her. It's none of my business. If there are things she thinks I should know, she'll tell me. You, on the other hand, are going to tell me your life story during our 6 hours on the road tomorrow. 6 hours, huh? There isn't much to tell. No problem. When you hit a lull, I'll ask an open-ended question. You may regret that. So, are you going to take me out to celebrate or stand me up? I always try to keep my promises. Let's go. Oh, your ring is on the island. Shelley did work on your mom last night. They drove to the restaurant and enjoyed the dinner and each other. On the drive home, Anita spoke. Mom would love it here. You think so? I'm sure of it. Her house sits between 3 cornfields, and across the street is a forested 5-acre lot that's surrounded by more cornfields. Where does she live? Grand Lake, Ohio. She's been in the house since I was 3. I've never lived in a single state that long. Where have you lived? Let's see. Ohio, Texas, Illinois, Texas again, Colorado, Japan, Illinois again, Georgia, back to Texas, Indiana, Michigan, Texas, and finally California. What was your favorite? I loved Georgia. I never did care for the cold in the Midwest. Texas was mostly for work. California, I guess. Have you traveled much? This is, by far, the farthest I've ever been from home. Where would you like to visit? Anywhere with something besides cornfields. Europe? Asia? Australia? D, all of the above. Me too. I lived in Japan for 2 years, but I saw little of the country. Never been anywhere else overseas. Hawaii is gorgeous, but I thought the people were a bit rude. The Hawaiian people? Actually, the native Hawaiians were fine. It's the white transplants that were rude. I guess you can't blame them. Half the population at any given time is tourists. What's the most exciting thing you've ever done? That's easy. Kiss your mom. Anita laughed. Besides with Mom, I've done several exciting things. Driven a car at 160 miles an hour, skydived, delivered babies, did the Heimlich maneuver successfully twice, got knocked out of a boat in the Okefenokee swamp, water skied behind a jet boat at 70 miles an hour. That was exciting until I crashed. Kissing your mom tops all of those. And of course, discover I have a daughter. That's right up there with kissing Carol. Anything that scares you? Getting hit with a bill for 22 years of back child support, he said, grinning. Actually, I'm terrified that I'll wake up tomorrow and discover that the last 2 days have been a dream. She pinched his arm. It's real, Dad. What besides that? Outliving my usefulness, being a burden. I need to have a purpose. Dreams. It's more fantasy than dream. Find a way back into your mother's arms. That's not fantasy. It's going to happen. I won't be holding my breath. Good. It may take me a little while. What are your dreams? I'm starting work on my master's in the fall, so finishing that. Master's in what? Education. I want to teach elementary kids. What else? Find a love like yours and Mom's. Make you a grandpa one day. Travel. Be happy. Don't rush the grandpa. I've only been a dad for a few hours. If you could go back and change one thing in your life, what would it be? Dad? I wouldn't have gone on the sneak date with your mom. That one event cost me everything. How about you? I honestly don't know. I'll have to think about that. What's your joy? Making a difference for the good in someone's life. Tough one now. Do you believe in God? That's not that tough. You may think I'm nuts though. I don't believe in some guy with a long white beard that gives us rules to live by, then in a later chapter tells us to break them. I don't believe in a God that's so weak he has to kill his son. I don't believe in a God that would send his children to a place like hell. I believe in a loving God. Next logical question is, do I believe in Jesus? Yes, Jesus existed. Was he the Son of God? Yes, and so are you. I mean that in an asexual way. I believe God has granted each of us the power to create. The catch is, we don't have the understanding of it that Jesus had. A Course in Miracles? You're familiar with it? Superficially, but yes. I don't think you're nuts. Democrat or Republican? I'm conservative but don't claim a political party. I think the government is way too big and that politicians should be allowed 4 years in office then sent back to wherever they came from. Government by the people and for the people doesn't exist anymore. It's government by the politicians for the politicians now. Favorite musicians? Beatles, Heart, and Ozzy. Favorite song to max out the radio? No More Tears, Live. That's a great one. Favorite food? Now that's a tough one. Steak burger with lettuce, tomato, onion, pickle and relish. Steak and shake. Yep. Favorite drink? Booze drink. With and without alcohol, she replied. Without depends on the time of day. Booze? Tequila sunrise. Favorite movie? Somewhere in Time. Favorite book? Earth Abides, George R. Stewart. They pulled into the driveway and stopped. Once inside, they went out to the patio again. Anita, tell me how I can be more involved in your life. I really want to. Dad, with Mom being like she is at the present, we're gonna have to keep this away from her. On your call with her this morning, you mentioned you were in Cottonwood. If she does a simple Google search, I'll pop up. I'm on Facebook too, and it will lead her directly to Cottonwood. We'll have been made. I know. I have no plan to lie to her. I'll tell her about the Ancestry DNA test and that you and I confirmed it. I'll tell her about us spending time together and getting to know each other. I won't lie to her, and I don't want to do anything to hide you. I'm not going to volunteer what you've told me about what happened at the home, but I won't lie about that either. If she does discover you know me, I think she'll be upset. Maybe for a little while, but she'll come around. She knows I wanted to find my father but wouldn't tell me anything. She even talked about you this morning. That's a big step for her. Yeah, she'll come around. You know her a lot better than I do. I'll trust you on this. I really do want to be a part of your life in any way I can. May I ask about finances? They're tight, Dad. I have the summer off from school, but I'm going to be doing some research for one of my professors this summer and will make some money to help. School loans won't come due for payback until a year after my master's is complete. Mom works as a secretary at the Grand Lake Middle School. When school is out, she works part-time at 3 other places. Mom has been paying for much of my school. It's been tough for her. How about housing? Mom bought a house when I was 4 in Grand Lake. She'll have it paid for in about 3 years. When I'm in school, I live in the dorm. When I'm on breaks, I live with Mom. Do you and Carol have a good relationship? We do now that Chad is gone. Who is Chad? Mom's ex. She married him when I was 5. He's a lazy, abusive drunk. He and I despised each other from day one. When I was 14, he beat me up. I ran away and lived with Aunt Sarah. That was what finally convinced Mom to get rid of him. After their divorce, I came back home. I can't imagine Carol with an abusive drunk. Dad, we talked about that after the divorce. I honestly got the feeling Mom thought that's what she deserved. After what we've figured out since I got here, I suspect she's been punishing herself over what she did to you. Maybe so. Is he completely gone now? He's in prison for assaulting some woman in a bar. I think he's got another 5 years. After the divorce, he made Mom's life miserable by harassing her. She finally got a restraining order to keep him away. When he gets out, he'll be harassing her again. She's gonna have to move away to get rid of him once and for all. How about we get her to move in here? I wish, he said, smiling. God, I wish that could happen. Anita, I'd like to pay for your school. I'll take care of the loans and cover the cost from here on out. That will allow you to concentrate on school and ease things for your mom too. Dad, that's a lot of money. I can't let you do that. I have a daughter that I haven't supported the way I should have. I'm a single doc with an excellent income. I don't owe a nickel to any creditors. My house and car are paid off and I have plenty of money in the bank. I want to do this because it's the right thing to do. What kind of father would I be if I didn't help? Dad, we're looking at over $50,000 in school loans and right at $20,000 this year and next. Good. It's all settled. What are you driving? Mom gave me her car. It's a 2-year-old Honda Fit. What's she driving? A 15-year-old train wreck. Let's get you a new one and you can give hers back. Dad. Anita, please. I want to help. It's too much money. Oh, bull. If I had been there as I should have been, it would have been a lot more money. I doubt that. Let's see. 500 a month times 12 months times 22 years. That's 132,000. And with my income, a court would have doubled or tripled that. It's still a lot of money. Dad, that isn't why I came here. I know that. A father doesn't do things for his children because they push him into it. He does it out of love and because it's the right thing to do. Please let me be the kind of father I need to be. Anita teared. Okay. God. I wish I had known you a long time ago. I do too. Do you bank online? Yes. Come with me. I'll send some money to your account. They walked inside and into a small room in the hallway. The room was small with no closet and a single window. He sat at the computer desk and opened his banking program. I'll need your banking account info. She read off the info from her phone and entered it into the computer. Then made the transfer. All set. When you get home, take care of things and get yourself a car and whatever else you need. Thank you, Dad. She leaned over behind him and hugged him, then kissed his cheek. You're welcome. I love you. I love you too. They went to their rooms a short time later for the night. Saturday morning, they headed out early for the beach. It was a 3-hour drive through the mountains. During the drive, Anita filled her father in on much of what he had missed during her youth and teens. She had worn her swimsuit under her clothes, and when they arrived at the beach, Anita was surprised they were alone. Where is everyone? Anita. According to the internet, the water temperature is 55 degrees. That's 15 degrees above my refrigerator. I don't care. I have to go in the water. The sun's out and it's a beautiful day. Take pictures for me. He got several of her dressed and then she stripped down to her bikini. He took several more of her posing. Stand by the water's edge. I'm gonna run into the surf and dive right into a wave. I want a video of it. Anita, I don't think. Dad, please. I've never been in the ocean. This is the first time I've even seen it. Have it your way. He walked to the blanket and kicked off his sandals, then went to the very last of the dry sand. With the video running, he gave her a wave. Anita ran toward the water. The second her feet touched the water, she realized her mistake, but her momentum kept her moving forward. The wave hit her at about chest level and knocked her backward onto her back. The wave covered her as she scrambled to get up and out of the ocean. It was breathtakingly cold. As the wave receded, she scrambled toward the dry sand. The look of shock on her face could have been from a horror movie. Dean was struggling to hold his laughter. Holy shit, she shouted, running full speed to her blanket and dry suit. He followed her down the beach. She was shivering, pulling her sweatshirt over her head and sweatpants over her legs. Anita curled up in a ball on the blanket. Her father wrapped an unused towel around her head and then covered her completely with the blanket. He turned the video back on and recorded her covered, shivering body under the blanket. He stopped recording and sat on the sand next to her. It took a couple of minutes for the shivering to stop, and she laid there quietly still in the ball for several more. "You could have warned me," she said faintly. "I'm pretty sure I did. As my father, you should have said, 'Anita, my lovely daughter, I forbid you to run like an idiot into the freezing water.' Would it have stopped you?" "No, but you could have said it anyway. Is anyone else on the beach?" He looked around. "Just us. Make sure the blanket stays over me. I've got to get this bikini off before it freezes to me." She began moving under the blanket, and after several minutes, she sat up wearing the sweats and holding the bikini in her hand. "Better." "Yes, but I need your body heat." He laid next to her, and she rolled into him and stayed there for several minutes before she started laughing. "That was so cold. I can't imagine." "Trust me, it was. So much for the ocean. They aren't all like that. One of these days I'll take you to a nice warm one. I'm going to hold you to that. Mom's never been to the ocean either. Can we bring her?" "Sure. She's always welcome. Is it okay if we go back to the truck so I can turn the heat on? Here's the keys. You run ahead. I'll bring the stuff back." "Deal." She grabbed the keys and ran to the truck, started it, and turned the heater to high. By the time Dean got to the truck, she was warm again. With Anita at the wheel, they headed north on Highway 101 toward Klamath, where they saw the enormous redwoods and rode the skyway through the treetops. On the return trip, they stopped for lunch. Dean had continued his questioning as they drove. In Redding, they stopped at Trader Joe's for some groceries, then returned to the house. As they looked through the pictures and video they had taken, they came across the beach video. Dean played it on the big screen TV, and they laughed uproariously. Anita sent several photos and the video to her mother. Her phone rang about 10 minutes later. She answered and put it on speaker. "Hi, Mom." Carol was laughing so hard it took her a moment to reply. "Goodness, that was funny. You've got to send that to Funniest Home Videos. That's a winner. Did you see my expression when I got up? That was priceless. Did you do that today?" "Yes, it was this morning. After that, we went to see the redwoods. God, they're huge. I'll send you some pictures in a little while." "Good. Who are you traveling with?" "He has a nice laugh. It was a guy I met on Thursday after I arrived." "Good. Just be careful." "I am, Mom. You know me." "What are you doing this evening?" "Just hanging out. It was a 6-hour drive today. I'm too pooped to do anything else." "How about the rest of the weekend?" "Tomorrow is fishing and swimming. I'm staying right on Lake California. The water's warmer here too." "Is this guy you met going to be there?" Mom asked. "He sure is. We have a bet. When I catch the biggest fish, he has to cook me dinner." "I wish you luck. What are you fishing for?" "A big fish. I wouldn't know what it was anyway." "Mom, you'd love it here. Maybe later this summer we can both go. I think it's high time we see something besides cornfields." "He already invited us back." "A guy invited your mother?" "I showed him your picture. He thinks you're a babe." "Oh, Anita, you're so full of it." "Mom, it's true. He said you're the most beautiful woman this side of Mars." Carol laughed. "Someone said those exact same words to me once." "Your high school boyfriend?" "Yes, Dee. He always said it like he meant it too." "Mom, you've still got a thing for him, don't you?" "It's really strange. Since my dream the other night, I can't think of anything else." "If you could go back in time and change one thing, what would it be?" She thought for a moment before answering. "I'd listen to what he wanted to tell me that afternoon in the drugstore." "Cha-ching," Anita thought. "What would you do if he called you one day?" "I'd hang up on him." "Mom, you make no sense. You obviously love this guy. The one thing in your whole life you'd change would be a chance to talk to him. But you'd hang up on him if he called." "Anita, you just don't understand. If I talked to him now, he'd hate me anyway. You probably would too." "You underestimate my love, Mom, and I'm pretty sure his too. Neither of us would hate you, and whatever you said would finally be off your chest." "Anita, I couldn't live knowing either of you hate me. I just can't take that chance. I need to go. My roast needs to come out of the oven." "You don't have a roast in the oven." "And how do you know that?" "You never do a roast when you're alone. Only when me and Aunt Sarah are there." Smarty pants, she replied. Mom, you're lonely. You're still in love with him. You've kept whatever this is inside for 20 years. You need to resolve it. Track him down. Talk to him. You always told me to say you're sorry if you need to. Maybe you should listen to your own advice. Someone's at the door. Gotta run. Call me later in the week. Carol ended the call. That was sudden, Dean said. She was crying. She doesn't like anyone to know when she cries. Anita, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's hurting her. No, it isn't. She knows that telling the truth and apologizing is the right thing to do. She's told me that 1,000 times. What's hurting her is not doing it. Anita's phone rang. She put it on speaker. Yes, Mom? There was no one at the door. I lied. I'm sorry. Apology accepted. I'm not strong enough to face up to this. I really wish I was. It just isn't something I can do. I'm sorry. Mom, you're apologizing to the wrong person. If you owe Dean an apology, you have to give it to him. I know that. I just can't. I love you. Call me this week, please. I will. I love you too. Bye, Mom. She ended the call. See what I mean, Dad? He nodded. She sounds so lonely, Dad. She needs you as much as you need her. Anita was tearing. When Dean got up Sunday morning, Anita was already on the dock fishing. She had one line on the bottom and was casting for base with another. He stood and watched her for a while. She was much better at casting than he was. She caught a small bass and threw it back. Anita loved fishing. It was peaceful. When troubled, she often went to the lake at home and worked out issues while fishing. Her mother did the same thing. This morning she had decided how she was going to address the mom and dad problem. When she got home, she would track down both Mr. Worth and Mrs. Tucker. There had to be a way for her to convince them to tell her mother the truth. Getting her mother and father face to face was another issue. Dean walked down the ramp to the dock. Good morning. You should have kept that bluegill. It may be your biggest catch of the day. Shush, you're scaring off the fish. Fish don't have ears. No, but they have vibratory sensors that pick up sound waves as vibrations. Hush. Yes, ma'am. You're better at casting than I am. You should see Mom. She can drop the line in a freaking coffee cup from 30 feet. I'm not exaggerating that either. Wow, I'd like to see that. You're going to. Right here on this dock. Want some coffee? He asked. No thanks, but some water would be nice. With lemon. She looked at him and smiled. Sure. You have such a beautiful smile. Thanks. I got it from Mom. I know. He went inside and returned shortly with an insulated mug. Thank you. What are you fixing me for dinner? You haven't won yet. Yes, I have. What are you fixing? Well, if you win, what would you like? If I win, right? I've already won. Burgers, onion rings, and fresh fruit. If I win. What a joke. Weight has to be verified. If you caught something and threw it back, it doesn't count. Changing the rules, are we? Weights are always verified in a tournament. Dad. The tournament is all over but the crying. Anita. I haven't even put a line in yet. No point in it, you're wasting your time with that. Relax and enjoy your coffee and watch the winner do her magic. What's the biggest you've ever caught? Channel cat. I didn't have a scale with me. When I cut him open to fillet him, he had a 55-gallon drum in his stomach. You are so full of it. He laughed. She chuckled. One time Mom and I were fishing. We were having a contest too and stored the fish in a cooler. We saw everything each other caught. When we were at the cleanup station, she pulled out a huge cat from the bottom of the cooler. I saw her catch that day. She would never admit it, but she cheated. Don't trust her. Seriously. Seriously, Sage. He cheats. I can't picture that. How funny. She isn't a naive 16-year-old anymore. Dad. She's a very capable woman who takes her fishing seriously. She's got 2 other tricks too. If you leave to go to the bathroom, she'll reel your line in, take off your bait, and cast it right back where you had it. She carries fishing pliers in her pocket when she fishes. She'll tell you that you need to check your bait, then will grab the line offering to check it for you. What she does is take the pliers and cut the barb off your hook. That devious little cheater. I'll remember that. My pole has accidentally fallen in the water a couple of times too. She's totally untrustworthy when fishing. Any other time she's as honest as the day is long. If it ever happens, I'll watch her. They fished until about 11. Dean caught a couple of small cats. Anita snagged about a 3-pound cat but didn't even bother to weigh it before setting it free. Well, that's it. I won, Anita said, putting her poles away. How do you figure? You let that one go before we verified the weight. That's a draw in my book, he replied. It would be, but you forgot about old Roy. Who is old Roy? She walked to the end of the dock and pulled up the line stringer. This is old Roy. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Get the scale. Amazed at the size of the fish, he did just that. It was 6 pounds and 4 ounces. When did you catch this? About 10 minutes before you came outside. I win. I concede to the lady with the beautiful smile and the big catfish. He bowed to her. Get a pic. I want to send it to the cheater. He took out his phone and took a couple of pictures. After reviewing them, she sent one to her mom. A reply came in just a few minutes. Dean opened it. Very nice. Your gentleman friend is handsome. He smiled and showed the reply to Anita. Oh crap, she said as she looked more closely at the picture. Dad, you've been made. What do you mean? I'm not in the picture. Anita handed him the phone. Zoom in on my sunglasses. He did and saw himself clearly in the reflective mirrors. Ray Charles could see that's you. Give me the phone. I'll try and play it down. She replied. Handsome cat. Very, was the reply. Let's just leave it at that and see if she says anything else. The phone chirped. You should throw him back. Someone else might get lucky enough to catch him someday. She's toying with us. She knows, Anita said. Mom, he's a keeper. I still think you should leave him for someone else. Anyone in particular? You never know. Anita was laughing. Are you still bringing me there next time? You bet. Anytime you're ready. Not quite yet, but I'm considering it. Have fun. Mom out. Dad, read this. She knows. Anita handed him his phone. He read the message exchange. I think you're reading into this. She could be talking about the fish, he replied. She could be, but she isn't. I know, Mom. She's thinking about seeing you. Carol went to her computer and opened the email she had just sent herself. She zoomed in on the sunglasses and smiled. That sneaky little shit, she said to herself. She minimized the photo and opened the browser, then typed, Dean Coates Cottonwood. His image popped up along with his office info in Cottonwood. She clicked on another link and found his home address, then opened another browser and typed that in. His house sat right on Lake California. There was another link to a realtor, and after clicking that, she toured the house. Beautiful place, she said. One picture showed the dock. She reopened the photo of Anita and zoomed out. The house behind her was the same as on the realtor site. She closed the realtor site after putting the address in her phone. Then opened another browser and entered the phone number that the picture of Anita and the fish had come from. Dean Coates was the result. She saved the number to her address book, then closed the browser. His image was on screen next to the photo of Anita. With a right click, she opened the menu and saved his photo, then sat looking at both. What else do you two know? She asked out loud. Carol looked at his picture for a long time as tears streamed down her cheeks. She remembered that black hair, the big brown eyes, and the dimples that were not visible last time she saw him. The marks and bruises were gone. He looked alive and happy here, so different from the image she had carried all these years. She closed the browser window. You know, don't you, baby girl? She asked out loud. Carol cried. Dean did wind up fixing dinner that night, but Anita helped. He talked to his pictures for a long time. Before going to bed, he opened the community app and added Anita to the guest list. Then, as an afterthought, he added Carol too. Monday morning, he dressed in his scrubs and had Anita drop him off. She would be back at 11:30 to meet everyone and have lunch. He gave his debit card to Alex to order pizza for everyone, then began the day seeing patients. Just as he was going into a room at 11:15, he told Alex she was coming and to have her wait for him at his desk. The patient he was about to see had a large laceration and would require about 30 minutes to suture. When he walked into his office, Anita was sitting at his desk. She and Alex were talking. Alex went to discharge the patient and straighten the room while he completed his doctor's note. It was 12 o'clock. "Ready for lunch?" he asked. "Starved," she replied. They walked down the hall to the staff lounge. Everyone in the office was there, which was the norm when free food was involved. He and Anita stepped just inside. "Everyone," he said. All eyes turned to him. "I'd like to introduce someone. This is Anita Reynolds, my daughter." Mouths dropped. For a moment you could have heard a pin drop. "Well, now we know he had a real life once," the pediatrician said. "It's nice to meet you, Anita." Everyone greeted her and introduced themselves. They made a spot for them at the table and made Anita a part of the family. In no time they were all laughing and chatting with her. The nurse practitioner, Angela, came to him and bent down between them. "When did you take a few minutes off to make a baby?" she asked. "Labor Day, 23 years ago." "Why have you been hiding her?" "I haven't. We just had DNA testing Friday. I had no idea." "Congratulations. Who's the mom?" "My girlfriend from high school." "The one at the home?" "Uh-huh," he replied. "What did she say about your back?" He shook his head at her. "What about your back, Dad?" "Wait till you see what those bastards did to him," Angela said. "Angie, that's enough," he scolded. "Sorry. I didn't realize it was classified. What happened to your back?" Anita asked. "Anita, how long are you in town?" the office manager asked. "I leave Wednesday afternoon. Dean, admin called. They've got 2 providers with nothing to do this week. Why don't you take tomorrow and Wednesday off and spend it with your daughter?" "Deal. Can you arrange it?" "I'll send a text right now." "Thanks," he replied. "Dad, you didn't answer my question." "Just an old injury. I'll tell you about it this evening." "Anita, some of us are going out for drinks this evening. If you'll join us, we'll tell you all kinds of crap on your dad," Alex said. Anita grinned, then looked at her dad. "Will you go too?" she asked. "He never goes. We've invited him every time for the last 3 years. He'd rather go home and be alone," Tanya told her. "Dad and I would love to go. Wouldn't we, Dad?" Sure," he replied. "Finally, someone that has some pull." Alex and everyone else laughed. "Dad wants you all to know drinks are on him tonight," Anita announced, grinning at her dad. Everyone applauded. "Long Branch Saloon at 7, Tanya told him. "We'll be there," he said. "Country and Western casual wear. It's ladies' night tonight," Alex added. "I need to go shopping then." "Where's a good place?" "Cavender's in Reading. Don't forget the belt, boots and hat," Angie replied. "Oh, I won't. Dress or jeans?" "Jeans with bling on the pockets. Just tell one of the clerks where you're going. They'll fix you up," Alex told her. "Got it. Dad, do you have your outfit?" Anita asked. "Yep, I'm all set." The rest of lunch was fun. Anita fit right in. At 1, they notified Dean his next patient had arrived. He kissed his daughter and left to see the patient. Angie came to him and apologized for letting the cat out of the bag about his back. He assured her it was fine and that it would have come up sooner or later anyway. Just before 4, Anita returned, and a short time later, they headed for the house. Dean was sitting on the patio when Anita walked out. "How do I look?" "Wow," he replied. Anita wore a white hat with her blonde hair in a ponytail, a red Western-style shirt, tight boot-cut jeans with a Western belt, and a huge silver buckle and high-heel cowgirl boots. She was a class act. "I need pictures of this. Let's go to the fireplace." He took multiple pictures of her and she took several of him. They would get pictures together at the saloon. Anita drove the truck and they walked in together right at 7. The office staff had a large table reserved and several people were already there. Tanya took pictures of father and daughter in front of the Long Branch sign. The waitress came to the table for their orders. Dean handed her his charge card. "Food and drink at this table go on this card. I'm the designated driver, so keep me supplied with a tonic water with a twist. Take good care of us and I'll make sure it's worth your effort." "Anita, what would you like to drink?" "A long neck, of course, light," she replied. By 8, the place was packed. The band began and Anita was on the dance floor almost all evening. She already knew all the dances. Every time a slow song played, she went and got her dad for a partner. When someone tried to cut in, she politely declined. "You won't hurt my feelings if you dance with someone," he told her. "Ever slow dance with a drunk cowboy, Dad?" "I've never danced with a sober one even." "My pleasure, ma'am." He settled the tab at 11 and left the waitress a nice tip. The women from the office had thought things out well, and each of their 3 cars had a designated driver. As soon as they were in the truck, Anita took her boots off. "I love the way these look, but how women can wear them dancing is beyond me. Why didn't you take them off? And ruin the look? Not a chance." "Where'd you learn all the dances?" "Dad, we have country and western bars in Ohio too." "I don't think I've ever been in a bar in Ohio." "Why didn't you dance?" "I took dance lessons about 10 years ago, but it wasn't country." "Maybe you can teach me." "Maybe, Mom hasn't been in years, but she's a big-time fan of dancing. If you can line dance, 2-step and swing, you've got a partner for life. I'll teach you tomorrow." "You're on." Tuesday, they spent much of the day dancing. Dean felt ready if the opportunity ever presented itself. Anita talked to her mom, but nothing was said about the innuendo of the previous day. They went to Red Bluff for Italian dinner that evening. Both were quiet on Wednesday morning. Neither wanted the visit to end. They were on the patio having a light lunch. "Dad." "Yeah, babe? In a few weeks, I'm hoping to come back for another visit if that's okay." "Of course it's okay. My home is your home. If you give me 3 days warning, I'll take the week off." "Would it be okay if I brought Mom?" "Anita, seeing your mom would be a dream come true. I just don't want her hurt." "I don't want that either. Will you tell me about your back now?" He told her the story of what happened. At first, she was shocked, then angry. When he finished, she asked to see his back. As his shirt came off, Anita cried. Without him knowing, she took a couple of pictures and put her phone away before he turned back to her. "Anita, I'm trusting you to say nothing to your mom about this. It could only cause her pain." "Dad, she has a right to know what they did to you." "Anita, promise me you won't bring it up. The men that did this, in their own twisted way, did it because they loved her. I've forgiven them now that I realized that. They were trying to protect her from what they thought I was." "But Dad, promise me you won't bring it up. Please. It's against my better judgment, but I promise." "Thank you. I explained to you why. You can forgive them too if you try." "I'm not ready to do that right now, but I'll think about what you said. That's the best I can do. I can't ask for anything more than that." "Dad, can I call you?" "Anita, you have a 24/7 invitation to call, text, email, FaceTime, or visit. I don't take my phone in the exam room with patients, but I'll get back to you as soon as I can." "I thought you knew that." "I did. I just wanted to hear it from you. I love you so much, and I'm so glad we finally found each other. So am I. I love you beyond measure." "School starts in September." "Yes, right after Labor Day. We talked about a warm water beach. Would you have any interest in a 1-week Caribbean vacation in July or August? Can Mom come too?" "If she wants to. You know how I feel about that. But you and I for sure. Okay?" "Yes, I'd love that. When you get home, check your calendar and let me know when. I'll get it set up. If there's a particular place, let me know that too." "Do you and Mom have passports?" "I don't, and I doubt Mom does either. It takes about 6 weeks to get so start on in soon." They sat on the couch together for a long time before Anita went to finish packing. At the appointed time, he drove her to the airport. They sat together in the terminal. When the flight was called, he walked her to security. They held each other for a long time, then parted with tears in their eyes. Anita stopped and turned to him one last time, throwing a kiss before she turned the corner out of his sight. Dean walked to the window and watched his daughter and the other passengers walk across the tarmac to the plane. Just before going up the steps, she stopped and looked back for a moment, then climbed the stairs and disappeared into the plane. He stayed there watching until the plane took off, then slowly, with his head down, walked to his truck. Carol was both looking forward to and dreading Anita's return. She missed her when she wasn't there, but she knew that there would have to be a discussion she had dreaded for a long time. The idea terrified her. She really was afraid that once Anita knew what she had done, she ran the risk of losing her forever. That was something Carol knew she'd never be able to live with. Carol would see her tomorrow and they would get together. She wondered if this might be for the last time. Anita's trip would be a long one. Reading to San Francisco, then to Denver, then finally on to Columbus, arriving at 3 a.m. The first 2 flights were short. She slept much of the way from Denver to Columbus. Her mother was on her mind much of the trip. She had already formulated a plan now that she would have to implement and somehow make it work. When the plane was on the ground approaching the gate, she sent her father a text to let him know she had arrived safely. She got a happy face and an "I love you" in return. Anita walked to her car and drove home. Her mother was asleep, and she very quietly went to her room and fell asleep on top of the bedspread. She woke at about 8 o'clock and smelled coffee. She knew her mother was up. Anita opened her laptop and searched for Beth Tucker near the children's home. A Facebook page popped up. It was the right one. Going back to Google, she found an address and phone number. Checking Facebook again, she found Jerry Worth. He looked pleasant and the home kids that were friends seemed to adore him. She got his number and address. He and Mrs. Tucker lived about a mile apart and just an hour and a half from where she and her mother lived. Anita took a deep breath and dialed Beth's number. It rang about a half-dozen times before it was answered. Tucker residence. Good morning. May I speak to Beth, please? May I ask who's calling? My name is Anita Reynolds. I'm Carol Reynolds' daughter. Carol from the home? Yes, ma'am. This is Beth. Anita, is Carol all right? Yes, she's fine. Mrs. Tucker, I need your help. I'd be happy to help any way I can. Do you remember Dean Coates? Yes, I just adored him. He was your mother's boyfriend for a long time. Yes, that's the one. Do you, by any chance, remember why they broke up? Anita, I remember that mess like it happened yesterday. Mrs. Tucker, I met Dean last week. He told me that what my mom was told about him leaving wasn't the truth. What has your mother told you? She said he ran away and didn't want to come back. Your husband told her he didn't love her. A couple of days later, she was told he had been cheating on her. Mrs. Tucker, her heart was broken and so was his. Was my mom told the truth? No, Anita, that's not what happened at all. She was lied to by my husband and Mr. Worth. Mrs. Tucker, if I bring my mom there, would you tell her what really happened? Yes, Anita, I would. It's time she learned the real story. Have you spoken with Mr. Worth? No, you and Dean are the only ones I've spoken to about this. Mom has never heard the true version. Dean said that she would only believe it from you or Mr. Worth. That's probably right. They were very thorough in turning her against him. Such a shame. They loved each other so much. They still do, but she's never spoken to him since he left. I'm having Jerry Worth over for lunch tomorrow. Do you think you and your mother could join us? I'll get her there. Just give me a time and place. Beth gave her the address and noon for the time. She thanked her and ended the call. Her heart pounded with excitement. Anita walked to the kitchen. She got a cup of coffee and saw her mother sitting on the porch. Anita joined her in the wooden swing. Was it a good trip? Amazing, Mom. It's so beautiful there. I've heard that. Mom, is something wrong? How did you figure it out? Can you be more specific? Anita asked. Carol looked at her. Dean, I thought that was probably what you were asking. I'll bet you did. Are you mad? No, I'm surprised, stunned, scared and amazed, but no, I'm not mad. She turned to Anita and smiled, then hugged her. How did you figure it out? I had an ancestry DNA test done. I was curious about our ancestry. When the report came, it listed relatives that were in their database. The report listed Dean Coates number 7221 as my father. I looked him up on their database and found his birth date. From there, I did a Google search. I found him on Facebook. The birth date matched, and in his history, it said that he had been in the home for 3 years and left 2 years before you did. I went back to Google and found out lots of stuff. Where he works, what he does for a living, stuff like that. So, you paid him a visit? I flew out there and made an appointment to see him in his clinic. I told them I would like his opinion of some lab tests. He looked really surprised when he walked in the room and said I looked like someone he knew once. I gave him the report. He was very nice but said it had to be a mistake. Did he know I was your mother? He asked me who my mother was and when your birthday was. I told him. He knew my birthday? And a lot more. We'll get to that. We agreed to go to the lab for a second test the next day. He only works Monday through Thursday. Then he had the clerk cancel the visit so I wouldn't get a bill. I was the last patient that day, so when he finished up, he took me to a Mexican restaurant for dinner. He was going to drive me to my hotel after dinner, but I hadn't booked one yet. He offered to let me stay at his house that night. I agreed. God, I love his house. It's right on the lake. It needs a woman's touch though. Anyway, we talked for a while. He lives 3 blocks from his country club, so we walked over for karaoke night. Mom, he sang Never My Love to me, just like he did you. He said he was back in time on Halloween night 1966 singing to you. Anita started crying. Carol held her. Mom, he loves you so much. He has pictures of you on his wall. He has notes you wrote him. After he left the home, he even decorated his house just like you two had planned. He had the French provincial furniture and even the silverware and plates. What silverware? With roses on the handles. My God. I'd forgotten that. Friday morning, we went to breakfast. He doesn't cook much living alone, but you should see his kitchen. It's a dream. You could do one of those cooking shows in it. He knows how to cook, he just doesn't. Probably from his ex-wife or something. He's never been married. Dad said you were the only person he ever wanted to marry. From breakfast we went and got our tests. Then we spent the day on MT Shasta sightseeing. It was so beautiful there. Late that afternoon we got our test results. That's when we knew for sure. What did he say? He was thrilled. We both were. Mom, he's the most loving man I've ever met. Did he mention a problem with it? You mean like the fact that you had never had sex and he hadn't even seen you since the drugstore? Yeah, like that. He doesn't care how you did it. He told me that, Mom. Those were his words, and he also said he would never ask. Maybe he wouldn't, but I know you. Anita, you would have picked his brain. Yes, I did. He thought about it and came up with a pretty far-fetched answer. What? He said that someone took his sperm. They drugged him and MO took his sperm, then artificially inseminated you. Carol's jaw dropped. From your expression, I take it he was right? That is what happened. But Anita, I didn't know she drugged him. MO said she asked him for it and he collected it for her. I never would have been a part to rape. I know. He said that too. I just can't understand how he figured it out. When you and I were on the phone that morning, you mentioned seeing him about 4 years later when he was in the Air Force. You saw him, but he didn't see you. He said that he hadn't been back in Ohio since joining, so you would have had to have been in Illinois. He asked if you had any girlfriends that were ex-military. I mentioned MO. He knew she worked in the fertility clinic where they did artificial inseminations. He had a party at his house, and the next morning he had lubricant on his you-know-what. That was the only party MO had ever come to. He asked my birth date and looked at the calendar, then he asked if you carried me to term. When I told him I was a month premature, he started laughing. He had the whole answer. Most of it anyway, Carol replied. That's the same thing he said and told me if I wanted to know the rest, I'd have to get that from you. He wasn't angry? Mom. He laughed at your ingenuity and was thrilled you gave him a daughter. The next morning, he showed me a note you gave him on April 1st, 1966, my birthday. You had a dream that you two had a daughter that looked like you but had his dimples and sense of humor. You were going to name her Anita, after your mom. I don't remember writing that. It was your handwriting and spelling. You wrote it, Mom. Want to hear something else unbelievable? Sure. It's going to have to be really something after what you've already told me. When did you and Dad meet? Softball field when we were 14. Nope. That was your second meeting. You met when you were 4 in a grocery store. He asked you to marry him and you agreed when you were big. Oh my God. That was D. It was. You also told him you wanted one girl baby. Anita. I've dreamt of that for years. She had dreamt of it many times but had never considered the possibility that it could have been Dean. She remembered that when they talked, she had invited him to come and live at their house since his mom had more kids than she wanted. She remembered that they had held hands, skipped along the aisle together, talked about riding their bikes on the sidewalk, and he even agreed to play dolls with her. She remembered how her mom had helped them find his, and then how his mother had been so mean to him when they did. She had screamed at him, called him a damn brat, and jerked his arm really hard. His name was Dee. He had called her Caro. They both had cried as his mother dragged him away. She remembered her mother consoling her and telling her everything would be fine, and she could marry him when she grew up and wear a beautiful princess dress. Carol closed her eyes for a second, trying to visualize the little boy. She saw the small scar on his forehead, those brown eyes, and the dimples. It was him. She knew it was. Mom, I was meant to be yours and Dad's child. You and Dad were meant to be married to each other, your soulmates. Anita, you're putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5. I don't think so. Anita hesitated for a moment. Mom, you and I are supposed to have lunch at Beth Tucker's house tomorrow. She and Mr. Worth have something they want to talk to us about. How do you know them? Carol had never mentioned them that she could remember. Dad and I were talking about the home and he suggested I talk to Mrs. Tucker. I called her this morning. Meeting with us was her idea. Where are they? About an hour from here. We're supposed to be there at noon. What's she want to talk to us about? She said there were things she needs to tell you. Dee put her up to this. He hasn't spoken to her since he left the home. He knows nothing about it. I promise, Mom. Okay, I'll go. What could they possibly want to tell me after all these years? They went inside to get ready for their outing. Carol thought about Beth and Mr. Worth. They had both liked her and she felt the same way about them. Dean, on the other hand, never got along with Mr. Worth. It wasn't a matter of just getting along. They genuinely disliked each other. Beth's husband, Mr. Tucker, would come up and talk to her when she and Dean were together, and while being very sweet to her, would just glare at Dean the entire time. It was awkward. She had asked Dean about it, but he always blew it off as nothing more than a personality clash. Dean did have a special fondness for Beth. She always went out of her way to visit with him. Carol remembered Beth telling them several times how seeing them together warmed her heart, and that she could see their love. There was only one other adult at the home that Dean had a good relationship with. That was Mr. Ross. He was in charge of recreational activities. Dean wasn't at many of those. Mr. Worth always had him on restriction for one thing or another. When he was at an event, Mr. Ross always made it a point to be near her and Dean. When he was there, Mr. Tucker and Mr. Worth left Dean alone. It was almost like he was running interference. When Dean and the other boys started their band, it was Mr. Ross who gave them a place to practice and arranged for them to play at sock hops and other events. It was also Mr. Ross who had gotten Dean his job at the Western Auto Store in town. Still, she wondered what Beth and Mr. Worth could possibly have to say that was important after over 20 years. Anita asked her mother to drive her car that day. It was old and not as nice as Anita's little Honda, but she agreed. They shopped a little but bought nothing, then had lunch at the buffet. Anita didn't care much for it, but she knew her mother loved the salad bar. Mom, when did you figure out I was with Dad? I suspected when you told me about the karaoke. It wasn't so much what happened as it was the way you talked about it. I could hear how it made you feel. Then, after seeing him in your sunglasses, there was no doubt. What really has me perplexed is why I dreamt of him that night. Something had changed when I woke up Friday morning. I didn't hate him anymore. The dream reminded me of the love. Have you ever heard of Reiki? It's one of those kooky faith healing things, isn't it? It's a healing thing at least. I have no idea how it works. Dad and I were sitting at the table after he sang. An older couple came over and joined us. The lady's name was Shelley. She's a Reiki practitioner. She told Dad that she picked up that there was something that needed healing. She asked to borrow something of yours. I gave her the diamond ring. After they left, Dad and I talked about Reiki. He told me that Reiki masters believed they could heal things from the past. She asked him how and when he gave you the ring. That was to give her a target in time to work. When she brought the ring back the next day, she left a note with it. She had done her healing Thursday night and had a good feeling about it. That was the night you had the dream. Anita, this is all too weird. You can't go back in time, Reiki or no Reiki. Mom, when you look up in the night sky, what do you see? I assume you're expecting me to say stars, right? But you aren't seeing what the stars look like today. The light takes years, sometimes thousands of years, to get from those stars to our eyes. You're looking at the past, not the present. If you can see the past, maybe you can reach it. I don't know. What I do know is that something happened that night that allowed you to remember your love. It changed you somehow. Carol began humming the Twilight Zone music. Anita laughed. Dad did the same thing after I pointed out the date on this. She handed her mother a folded piece of paper. She opened it and read, My darling Dee, I had a dream last night. I always thought we would have a daughter. She would have black hair, dimples, and brown eyes. I was wrong. She's gonna look like me, but with gorgeous dimples like you. She'll have your sense of humor, God forbid, and will be smarter than both of us. We'll call her Anita after my mom. Just thought you should know. I'm wearing strawberry lipstick tonight, so I hope you sneak a kiss or two at town hall. I love you. Your future forever wife, Carol. Kasexo. Oh my God. I did write this. Mr. Ross caught us kissing that night, but he let us off. Dee loved that lipstick. I suspect it was the lips, not the lipstick he loved. Anita, can I keep this? It belongs to Dad. I forgot to give it back to him. Forgot. Okay, I liberated it from him. I planned to give it back after I showed you. Now you can give it back. Anita, a lot has changed. I don't hate him, and I realize now that I still love him, but I'm not ready to face him. I don't know that I ever will be. You give it back to him. Carol folded the paper and pushed it across the table to Anita. She looked it over for a moment, then pushed it back. No, I'm not going to do that. You keep it. It's not mine to keep, Carol replied. Then just leave it on the table. The busboy will find a place to put it. You're being a shit. I learned stubborn from the best, Mom. Carol put the paper in her purse. Anything else you wanted to do today? Carol asked. Yep, one more stop. I'll drive. They left the restaurant and Anita drove to the Ford dealership. What are we doing here? Looking at Mustang convertibles. For what? I'm giving you back your Fit and trading in this clunker for one. Anita, we've got to put our money back for school. We can't afford this. I've got it all worked out. Come on. They had no more than stepped out of the car when the salesman came to them. Afternoon, ladies. What can I help you with? Anita handed him the keys. We'll need a trade in value for this. Then meet us at the Mustang convertibles. Give me about 10 minutes, he replied, grinning. He was seeing dollar signs. Anita and Carol walked to the Mustangs. For we're convertibles. What color do we like, Mom? Not black or dark blue. They show dirt too easily. The yellow is a bit much. How about we look at the white one? Anita opened the door and got in. The car was boring with black cloth interior. It was an automatic and had few bells and whistles. She climbed back out. Get in, what do you think? I looked at the sticker. I think it's way above our budget. Just get in and check it out. Please. Carol got in and immediately frowned. The black interior is like a dungeon. Since we're dreaming anyway, it should have leather interior, 5-speed, CD, and GPS. Now let's go look at used ones. Carol got out. The salesman walked up to them. How do you like it? He asked. I'd rather have red, and I don't like the black cloth interior. I'd also like a stick, CD, and GPS, Anita replied. I have one in the showroom you should look at. They walked into the showroom. It was bright red with white leather interior. Anita and Carol grinned at each other and walked to it. The salesman opened the driver's door. Hop in, Mom. Carol got in and Anita went around and sat in the passenger seat. Carol was love-struck. It had everything. I love this. Now all we need to do is win the lottery. Carol chuckled. How much with our trade? Anita asked. I can give you $2,000 off the sticker with your trade, he replied. If you want to sell us the car, find us someone that can do better than that, Anita replied. That's the best I can do. Then send your boss over here. He'll do better, Anita told him. Anita, Carol scolded. She got out of the car and turned to the salesman. Do you have any convertibles in the used cars? I do. Follow me. He turned and started toward the door. Carol followed him. When he opened the door, Carol turned to speak to Anita. She was still sitting in the Mustang. Anita, come on, Carol said. Anita grinned. I need someone over here that would like to sell this car, she shouted. Everyone turned to look at her. Carol and the salesman hurried back to her. Anita, what are you doing? I'm trying to find someone that's interested in selling me this car. Another man walked up to Anita. I'm Tom Givens, the sales manager. How can I be of service? Would you like me to buy this car? Anita asked. Yes, I would, he replied, smiling. We were offered $2,000 for our trade-in. Your salesman offered to take that amount off the sticker, but he won't bargain. I see. How much are you willing to spend? What's the sticker price? I haven't looked, she replied. $42,000, he answered. Then I'm willing to go 35 with my trade. I can go 38. 36, she said. Miss, we have to make a little on the car. Then work with me, 36. I'll go 37, but that's absolute rock bottom. Anita got out of the car and walked around it. As she passed her mom, she winked, then walked the rest of the distance back to the sales manager. She looked him in the eye for a moment. 36 cash. Take it or leave it. Sold, he replied. Carol rushed to her and pulled her away. Anita, what in heaven's name are you doing? We don't have $36,000. Anita got her phone, and as Carol watched, she opened her banking app, then showed her the balance. Carol grinned. Your father. Aha. He told me to pay off all the school loans, cover the next 2 years of school, and buy a new car. Knock yourself out then. It's gotta be in your name. Insurance on this baby would eat me alive. I'm sure it would. They followed the sales manager into his office. Carol had just picked up the pen to sign the papers. Hold on, Mom, Anita told her. Anita looked at the man. We'll also need nice floor mats and a full tank of gas. She was smiling. Anything else? He asked. Nope. There are several styles in the parts area. Pick the set you want and either a Mustang shirt or hat. We'll fill the tank too. Hat or shirt for each of us? He laughed. One for each of you. Can we sign now? Oh, don't let me hold you up, she replied, smiling. Carol signed the papers and Anita transferred the full amount from her account. Minutes later, the confirmation of payment came through. It'll take about an hour to prep the car. Pick out your mats, hats, and TS. I'll get you a box to transfer your things from your trade. Anything else, ladies? Both shook their heads and then his hand. Anita and Carol started toward the door. Anita, he said. She turned to him. If you're ever looking for work, come see me. I just might do that. They were putting belongings in the box when her mother came up to her. Where did you get the ability to pull something like that off? Mom asked. From a movie. I think it was Robin Williams. Pretty cool, huh? Carol laughed. I wish your father had seen that. He would have loved it. Anita teared. I've waited 22 years to hear you say something like that. Please talk to him. I will. I promise, but not yet. Okay? You promise. I promise. They sat on the bench outside to wait. A short while later, the sales manager drove the Mustang up and parked in front of them. He got out and handed Anita the keys. They shook hands again. Anita used the remote and opened the trunk. After closing it, Carol headed toward the passenger door. Mom, you need to drive. This is your car, baby girl. You should drive. Not gonna happen. I don't know how to drive a stick. Then why'd? Anita started laughing and handed her the keys. Put the top down too. They got in the car. Carol started it up and put the top down. She adjusted the seat and mirrors. Ready? Carol asked. Music, we need music, Anita replied. Carol turned on the radio and froze. Never My Love was playing. Still think it's all coincidence, Mom? Carol grinned as they backed out and drove away. They took the scenic route home, and they got a lot of appreciative looks as they went through town. When they parked in front of the house, Carol turned to Anita. When we were 16, Dee and I were talking about the future. We planned our house. He told me one day he was going to buy me a red convertible. I'm glad he got to keep that promise with you. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but whose name is the car in? Mine, but it's your car, not mine. I can't drive a stick. I'll teach you. I don't want to learn. I like my fit. Anita. Mom. Dad kept his promise. He's still got one more left to keep, but you need to talk to him first. Anita, we were 16 then. Neither of us are the same people we were. I don't know who he is now, and he sure as hell has no idea who or what I am. Oh bull. You're still the same people, only better. He loves you and you love him. You both have me. You belong together. You always have, but you're going to at least have to crack the door to let him in. Then you can both take all the time you need to get reacquainted. There's no rush once you open the door, but you have to open it. Now, let's take some cheesecake pictures with the car. They got out and took pictures with each of them posing with the car. Anita chose one of her mother sitting on the door with her bare legs extended toward the trunk. She sent the pic to her dad with the message, "You kept your promise." Her reply came moments later. "Absolutely beautiful. Nice car too. Did you get one? I don't need one. My little fit is perfect. Thanks for helping me keep the promise. I love you." "My pleasure. I love you too." Anita considered telling him about the meeting tomorrow but decided she'd wait. A short time later, Carol asked Anita if she had sent her dad a picture of herself with the car. She asked her mom to send one since they were on her phone. Carol looked through the pictures and sent it to him via text. His reply came back about 15 minutes later. "She's beautiful like her mother. I like your car." "Thank you. It's Anita's car." "That's not what Anita says." Carol smiled. She may not have opened the door, but she had at least looked through the peephole. This was their first exchange of words in over 27 years. It was short. His first words were flirty, and he didn't seem to mind at all that his daughter had just spent $40,000 buying her a car. What kind of man has he become? She wondered. She knew she loved the boy she'd known so many years ago. Anita loved the man. That was obvious. Would she? Carol had promised to contact him, and she would, but not yet. Everything was moving so fast, and she was still afraid because she would have to tell him the secret she had kept for 23 years. He knew part of it already, but not the worst part. What would happen then? She wondered. Anita did agree to let her mother teach her to drive a stick, but not yet. Maybe in a few days. They spent a quiet evening together. Anita sat on the couch reading the latest Stephen King novel. Carol was in the recliner opposite her with a paperback. Anita watched her mom. Her eyes weren't scanning the pages. They were just staring at them. Anita smiled, realizing that Mom wasn't turning pages either. She was deep in thought. "Thinking about him, aren't you?" What? You're thinking about Dad, aren't you?" "I was, thinking about what to wear tomorrow." "You were not." Anita chuckled. "Are you a mind reader now?" "I'm a mom reader. When you're deciding what to wear, you open the closet doors and sit on the foot of your bed looking at the options." "You were thinking about Dad." "Maybe I was making out the grocery list." "Smartapants. You do grocery shopping on Wednesdays. This is Thursday. Admit it." "Maybe I was." "What of it?" "Oh, nothing." "Don't you owe nothing me." "What's on your mind?" "You've been dying to ask me about him ever since I got home." "I have not." "Have to." Anita laughed. "Fine. So what's he like?" She closed the book and sat up in the chair. "He's got eyes that seem to look into your soul. And when you speak to him, you know every word is being heard and understood. His smile is the real thing. There's nothing fake about it. When he speaks, I don't know, you just want to listen to him. He'd be perfect recording audiobooks. Manly voice, but sweet, and authoritative too, but gentle. He's smart, really smart. Not just book smart either. He understands people and the world. He sees beauty in things the rest of us overlook. He's lonely, and you can tell right off that he's missing the one thing that would complete him. He's movie star handsome. Strong arms, and his hands, I don't know what it is. They're manly but soft and gentle. When he holds your hand, you just don't want to let go. And when he hugs you, oh heavens, you're being hugged. It's not hard, you just sort of melt into him. He's a quiet man by nature. I'm sure I drove him nuts with all my questions the first couple of days. But he was patient and answered everything honestly and openly. He'd make a great teacher. He's an excellent cook. Completely comfortable in the kitchen and has the most beautifully put together kitchen I've ever seen. He picks up after himself and does little things for others that they probably don't even notice. He's been in his house for 3 years and I was his first ever guest. The girls he works with adore him. They try to include him in things they do outside of work, but he rarely goes. Alex said he's a loner. She works with him in the clinic. The patients love him. She said many of them refuse to see anyone else. I told you, I think, about the pictures on his wall. In his bedroom, you have a wall dedicated just to you. His furniture is nice, but as far as decorating, he needs a woman's touch, pillows, pictures, that kind of stuff. He loves plants and has a bunch indoors. But on the patio, he's got veggies, herbs, and flowers everywhere. He didn't ask much about you. That surprised me and I asked him about it. He said it was none of his business and that if you wanted him to know, you would tell him. You did come up a lot. I told him what an ass Chad had been. He was surprised that you put up with that for 10 years. He held doors for me, offered his hand to help me up, offered his arm when we walked. It wasn't an act either. He really is a gentleman. Mom, if I could pick a man for you of all the ones I've ever met, I'd pick him. Heck, I hope I can find one even close when my time comes. He set a new standard for me in just the few days I was there. Anita, why would a man like that even want someone like me? Why would a man like that ever want anyone who wasn't like you? You're just like he is. The only thing he has that you don't is the degrees. You're the perfect complement to each other. He's a success in everything he touches. Except one thing. Dad told me success, happiness, and peace all come from inside, not what you accomplish or have. You've invested your life raising me, and if I must say so myself, you've done one hell of a job. Everyone that knows you adores you. You're caring, honest, and you're everything you've taught me that a woman is supposed to be. Anita, in your eyes, I could probably walk across Grand Lake and not get your shoes wet, but that's not the point. You are all those things. Now's your chance to choose to love and be loved. Whatever you think this horrible secret is, it won't matter. Dad and I love you no matter what. That's easy to say. Mom, history books are full of people who've done worse things than you could have possibly done. Their children, husbands, and wives may not have liked what they did, but they still loved them. Love isn't something that just goes away. If it's real love, it stays love. When did you get so knowledgeable about love? I was raised by a very loving woman. Carol laid awake for a long time thinking about what Anita had said. Maybe there was at least some truth to it. She had been a success raising Anita with the exception of exposing her to Chad for 10 years, but that had shown Anita what wasn't good in a relationship. As far as being a person, she had tried to be a good one. There were 4 things in her life she regretted. The way she hadn't given Dee a chance to talk to her in the drugstore. Being a party to Dean's rape, even unknowingly. Keeping Anita and Dean apart for all those years. And the 4th one. The one that everything could hinge on now. The one that ate away at her every time she thought of it. She woke up early and still tired, then went to the front porch to drink her coffee. Carol smiled, looking at the shiny red Mustang in her driveway. She picked up her cup and walked to it, looking it over. The sticker was still on the window. She read through the specifics. There were a lot of things she had no clue what they even were, but other things she had no idea it had. It would be fun learning all of them. She's a babe, huh? Anita called from the porch. Beautiful, Carol replied. I checked the weather. Pretty day to put the top down. Yeah, and we'll look like scarecrows by the time we arrive. Mustang caps and ponytails, Mom. I've already Googled it. Is there anything you don't Google? Not much. I need to call Dad. You okay if I do that here? Yes, but don't expect me to talk to him. I'm not ready. Picky, Anita replied. Anita dialed the phone and put it on speaker. Good morning, daughter. How are you? I'm good. Did I wake you? I had to wake up sooner or later anyway. I take it your mom knows about us. She figured it out. Was she upset? No, actually. She seemed relieved. Relieved? Better you than some pervert guy. I suspect she gives me about equal status with a pervert or murderer. Oh, she does not. I'm glad you got her the car. I'd hate to think of her driving a wreck. She loves it too. Thanks for the picture of her. She's as beautiful as ever. How about those legs? Lord, they're still amazing. I don't think she's still a 34B though. Carol blushed. How do you happen to know her bra size? Anita asked. I saw a tag once on her swimsuit. Bikini? Two-piece, my dear. She didn't wear bikinis back then. She does now. Okay, let's change the subject. Did you pay off the student loans? This coming weekend. Don't forget to apply for the passport either. Don't tell her why, but get Carol working on one too. Where do you do that? You get the application at the post office. What are you doing on your day off? Anita asked him. I was thinking of looking at boats today. Next time you come, we can run around the lake. I didn't see any fishing boats there. There are a few, but it's a no-wake lake. Not much point in those. I was thinking more like a pontoon. That works. How about the rest of the weekend? No plans. I'll probably go for a long walk or bike ride. That's about it. Dad, you're boring. Make me a better offer. Fly here and take two beautiful women to dinner, then line dancing. I wish. Or we could come out there. You'd both be welcome anytime. Anita, honey, I love that you're trying to get Carol and I together, but you have to try and understand how much I hurt her. I don't think she can ever forgive that. You're setting yourself up for a big disappointment. Dad, do you love her? You know I do. Are you willing to wait for her? Forever, Anita. Then don't bust my bubble. Yes, ma'am. Just promise me you won't hurt her. She's been hurt enough. I promise. Now relax. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you. What are you doing this weekend? Long drive and lunch today. Not much else planned. Anything you want me to tell her for you? Tell her thank you for making you. I will. By the way, you were right about how she did it. It was Mo. Mom didn't find out how Mo really did it until the next day. I knew she'd never have been a part of that knowingly. If she ever decides to have another child, I know an easier way that's a lot more fun. Dad, what would Mom think if she heard you talking like this? 27 years ago, she would have turned bright red. I have no idea now. She blushed. We've been on speaker the whole call. Oh shit. Sorry, Carol. It's okay, Dee, Carol replied. He was quiet. Dad, are you there? Dad. I'm here. Give me a minute. He didn't speak for a minute or so. Carol, I've waited a long time to say this. I know I promised never to leave you and I broke that promise. I'm sorry. Truly sorry, but it was for the best. I gotta go now. I love you both. The call ended. Mom. It sounded like he was crying, Anita said as she looked at her. Carol was crying too. He was crying, baby girl, she replied. Carol got up and went inside and got ready for the drive. They left at 10:30. Carol only spoke when spoken to, and those responses were short. Mom, are you upset about something? You bet I'm upset. Carol was pissed. First, don't you ever pull a stunt like that again. If you talk to your father, leave me out of it. Second, the nerve of that son of a bitch to break my heart, then say he's sorry, but it was for the best. For the best? Damn him and his arrogant attitude. I promised I'd speak to him and I did. That's the end of it. Tomorrow I'll teach you to drive the car. After that, I want the Honda back. The only thing in my life that's even remotely related to that bastard is you. Is that understood? Anita was crying and didn't reply. She just looked away at the passing scenery. It was about 30 minutes later that Carol put her hand on Anita's. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. I did mean what I said. I want you to have a relationship with him, but leave me out of it. I've done just fine for the last 27 years without him, and I'll do just fine for the next 27. I'm sorry I bit your head off. Anita still didn't respond. What had just happened was her worst nightmare. Everything had fallen apart again. Mom just didn't understand, and now Anita had been forbidden to try and clear it up. She loved both her parents and hated the thought of them being apart when there was so much love there. What Dad had said was true. Her mom would never have believed him if he had said more. She started crying again. Carol put her hand back on Anita's. We're about 10 minutes away. Do you want me to stop so you can fix your makeup? Please, Anita replied. Carol stopped at a 7-Eleven. Anita went inside and fixed her makeup as her mother waited in the car. After getting back in, Carol turned to her. Anita, Mom, if we talk now, I'll start crying again. Let's go have lunch. If you still want to talk afterward, we will. Are you going to be all right? We can cancel the lunch. I'm fine, Mom. I want to hear what they have to tell us. Carol pulled back on the road and a few minutes later pulled in front of the house. She put the top up and locked the car. Beth greeted them both with hugs. Mr. Worth sat in the living room. He didn't look as self-assured as he always had before. They chatted for a few minutes to catch up before Beth showed them to the dining room. She had kept lunch simple with soup and chicken salad sandwiches. About halfway through her sandwich, Anita looked up at Beth. Mrs. Tucker, you said there was something you wanted to talk to us about, Anita said. Yes, there is. Carol, I wanted to tell you about something that happened a long time ago that involves you and Dean. Beth, thanks for your concern, but I have no desire to hear anything even remotely related to him. Carol, this is important. I can't force you to listen, but you know I've always had your best interests in mind. Please allow me this. Carol looked at her for a moment and nodded. After Dean left the home, one of the boys told you he'd been seeing a girl in town. Isn't that correct? Yes. Carol, that was a lie. My husband, Mr. Tucker, told him to tell you that. Beth, why would he do that? My husband and Mr. Worth didn't want you and Dean together. When he left, they knew you'd be hurt. They wanted you angry so you wouldn't be tempted to get back with him if he found a way to contact you. Beth said, How do you know he wasn't cheating? The girl in question was his coworker's fiancée. Dean's bike had broken, and she had been asked to give him a ride home. Mr. Worth verified the story himself. Carol looked at Mr. Worth. He nodded. Well, thank you for telling me. After all this time, it really doesn't matter though. Carol, that's only the beginning, Worth said, looking down at the table. He was quiet for a while. Jerry, she needs to know, Beth told him. He looked at Anita, then Carol. When Dean came to the home, I met him in Mr. Tucker's office. He was with his brothers and sisters. That was the first time he'd seen them in almost a year. His mother had thrown him out. He lived on the street for a while, and when his alcoholic father got out of rehab, he lived with him. The rest of the children had been removed from their mother and put in a children's home in Dayton. When the state decided to move them to our home, Dean asked to come too. When Mr. Tucker told them that none of them would see each other for 30 days, Dean questioned it. I told him that was the rules. His response was that we should rethink our rules. Dean was accustomed to being on his own and making his own decisions. We couldn't allow that. To keep order, we have to control things. Dean was going to be a tough one. We had originally planned to put him in the freshman dorm, but decided to put him in another with a really strict house parent. She kept him on restriction for even the smallest infractions for the first 3 months he was there. We told her to do that. Many times during that 3 months, she sent him over for the strap. For spankings? Carol asked. Yes. You and Dean met a short time after he arrived and were a couple immediately. That was our worst nightmare. You were a bright spot for us. We loved you and had watched you grow from a scared little 8-year-old orphan into a capable and talented young woman with a brilliant future. Dean, on the other hand, we saw as trouble, a punk, a piece of trash. We did everything we could to keep you apart. We even had Mr. Ross get him a job in town, hoping that would minimize your contact, but that didn't work either. When we found out about your sneak date, we feared the worst. Our little Carol had been corrupted by Dean. He ran away knowing that it would keep you from the strap. I don't think you had ever been spanked. I hadn't, Carol replied. We knew he would be back in a couple of days. That's when we devised the solution to the Carol and Dean problem. His father brought him back, and I had Dean wait alone in my office. I asked his father to wait in the hall. I told Dean that he could go live with his father if that was what he wanted. He wanted to come back to the home. I agreed, but told him there would be consequences. He knew he would get the strap. I told Dean that if he came back, that we would take you to the hospital for a D&C to make sure you weren't pregnant. But we never had sex. I knew that. You had already told Mr. Tucker. Dean told us that too. I said it didn't matter. If he came back, we'd do it anyway. I even painted a very gory picture of what they would do to you and told him there was even a chance you would never be able to bear a child. Tears were flowing down Carol's cheeks. I told him if he would agree to leave, we wouldn't do it. He pleaded with me, but I wouldn't relent. That was why he chose to leave. Mr. Worth, you blackmailed him by threatening to hurt me and then lied to me about him just choosing to leave. How could you? Worth looked down at the table. Carol, I passed Dean as he and his father were walking out of the building. He was beaten and just the shell of that wonderful young man I knew. They killed him that day just as surely as if they had ripped his heart out. My husband had a restraining order put on him that would have gotten him arrested if he came back. He wrote you many times, but the letters were intercepted and returned unopened. Beth told her. Carol was sobbing and stood. She turned to Beth. Thank you for telling me. We'll be going now. Mom, sit down. There's more, Anita said as she handed her phone to Mr. Worth. Worth looked at the phone and began crying. He handed it back to Anita. Dean had only been with us for a couple of months before we realized our restrictions and spankings weren't working. Mr. Tucker and I called him to the office to directly address the problem. Mr. Tucker told him he wanted Dean to quit seeing you. He refused. I beat him with the strap. You spanked him for that? Carol asked. No, Carol. I beat him from the middle of his back to almost to his knees. Tucker was holding him up so I could continue. When Tucker let him go, he fell to the floor. Tucker asked him again to break up with you. He still refused. From that time on, we called him in once a week and repeated the beatings. He fought us, so we had Mr. Stewart join us. They would hold him and I would do the beatings. In time, he quit fighting us and just stood there until he dropped. Sometimes we'd continue beating him on the floor. Worth related. But I would have known, Carol cried. Mom, he wouldn't let you touch his back and he always faced you. When you danced, he had you put your arms around his neck. The only girls that knew about it were his sister Debbie and Jeanette. He made them promise not to tell. Anita told her. Oh my God. On Halloween, we had gotten wind that he had something special planned for you. We didn't know what, but Mr. Tucker not only wanted it stopped, but he also said that Dean wasn't going to be at the party that night. Stewart and I held him, and Tucker beat him worse than we ever had. When I saw blood on Dean's shirt, I took the strap away. That night, he not only showed up, but he sang to you. We couldn't beat him. Mr. Ross saw him trying to walk back to his dorm and took him to his house. Mrs. Ross put a salve on his back and dressed it. They also gave him that tiger shirt he wore that night, so it didn't rub the wounds. Beth added. Mom, I took this picture this week when I was in California. She put the phone in front of her mother. When she looked, her sobbing increased and her hands covered her face. You fucking animals, she screamed. She sobbed for several minutes before glaring at Mr. Worth. Mom, before you speak, I'd like to say something, Anita said. Carol turned to her. He told me that why they did it was because they loved you enough to risk their careers to protect you. If it had been found out, they would have all gone to jail. They risked that because they loved you that much. Yes, it was wrong. Dean said once he understood why they did it, he was able to forgive them. He asked me to forgive them too. I have, and so can you. If you don't, it'll eat at you the way their lies and deceit made you hate him. Please try. Carol put her hand lovingly on Anita's face, then turned to Beth. Thank you for lunch and for telling me. She turned to Mr. Worth. Thank you for finally telling me and for loving me. I'm not as much a woman as Dean is a man. What you did was wrong. It was evil. I'm not to a place where I can forgive you yet. I may get there one day. I don't know. When Dean left, he took my heart and all my dreams with him. I've hated him for 27 years because of your lies. And I did something even worse to him than you did. Anita met your piece of trash, as you called him. He's a respected physician now in a small town in California. His bedroom wall is still covered with my pictures. He never married and told Anita that I was the only person he ever wanted to marry. I haven't spoken with him, but Anita assures me he's the most loving man she's ever met. I am going to speak with him soon, and when I do, I'll have to confess my sins too. I hope he can find it in his heart to not hate me. I can't even hope for forgiveness. Thank you both again. She stood and hugged Beth, then kissed her on the cheek, then walked to Mr. Worth and did the same. I don't hate you, Mr. Worth. What you did today took a lot of courage. I'm not happy with you right now, but that'll pass with time. Carol and Anita walked to the car. Can I drive? Anita asked. It's a stick, remember? So? Anita started laughing. You devious little shit. What makes you think I want you driving my new Mustang anyway? So, you're keeping it? You bet your ass I am. They got in the car and headed home. When did your dad tell you all this? Everything but the beatings the day after I arrived. I didn't find out about those until the night before I left, and he made me promise not to bring it up. I wonder why. He didn't want you to hate Mr. Worth and Mr. Tucker. Dee took beatings to stay with me for almost 3 years. I wish he had told me. We could have found a way to get them stopped. He knew how you would have gotten them stopped. That's why he didn't tell you. How would that been? You'd have broken up with him. That's what they wanted all along. Carol thought for a moment. He's right, I would have. He left to protect me and took beatings to stay with me. Then I repaid him by hurting him at the drugstore, having him raped, and… She paused for a minute. I've got to talk to him. To both of you in person. He's off on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want a longer visit, he can take more time. I just need to give him about 3 days' notice. I think a weekend would be best. Maybe we could surprise him by showing up at his house on Friday, Carol said. Or do like I did. Show up at his office on Thursday. Oh, Mom, I've got it. I can call Alex. She's the medical assistant that works with him. She can sneak you in as his last patient on Thursday. Carol laughed. You really think she'd do that? I'm sure she would. I flew into Redding, which requires a stop in Denver, then San Francisco with a long layover. I think the best bet is flying to Sacramento and renting a car. It's only a 2-hour drive. You're the expert. I've never even flown. You set it up and I'll be there. What should I bring? Bring your Western outfit and boots. Maybe he'll show you his moves on the dance floor. Dee dances? He took lessons several years back for regular stuff. I taught him the country and Western moves. I'm amazed. He never did anything but slow stuff. Mom, maybe he was in pain. Carol teared. God, I feel horrible. Mom, he could have stopped it very easily. He chose you instead. It was his choice, not yours. Yeah, I guess so. What else should I bring? Swimsuit. I'd bring the orange bikini. Oh no, I only wear that sunbathing here. Maybe the red or white one. The orange one would fit in a tablespoon. It won't take up hardly any room in your bag. Anita, I am not wearing the orange one in front of anyone but you. I already caused the farmer behind us to crash his tractor. Dad doesn't have a tractor. No. Anything else? Sexy nightie? Not a chance. You've been in love the man for 30 years and you're still not ready to put out? I didn't say that, smarty pants. I said I'm not taking a sexy nightie. Good idea. No point having to waste time taking it off when you can just jump him. Oh, Anita. Okay, let's look at this realistically. He's a hottie. He wines and dines you, then romances you. You're going to say no. I don't know what I'd do. I want to get to know him again before anything like that. Gimme a break. I'll bet you jump him Thursday night. I'm not talking to you anymore. Mom, you're wasting your breath, Anita. Oh, Moom. Hush. Moom. Friday at the earliest, she replied. Thursday. Friday. Thursday night. That might work on a car salesman, but not me, Carol told her. Late Thursday night. No. Wee hours of the morning Friday, Anita said, grinning. Maybe, if he plays his cards right. Take the nightie. Good idea. And the orange bikini. He has a private dock. How private? Orange bikini private. I'll consider it. Are you on the pill? Carol started laughing. I like being an only child. I had a hysterectomy. You're safe. The rest of the trip home went the same way with good-natured teasing, but Carol still had being rejected in the back of her mind. She just couldn't shake it. Anita booked their reservations that night. They would arrive in Sacramento at noon and even with delays should be at the clinic in plenty of time. Anita and Alex had swapped numbers at the Long Branch, and Anita called her with the plan. Alex loved it and assured her it would be a simple task. Saturday, they went shopping. Anita pushed her mother hard and finally got her to buy nice lingerie instead of the granny panties she usually wore. She also picked up a couple of nice nightgowns. Carol wouldn't budge on getting the baby doll stuff. On Sunday, they got manicures and pedicures, then they laid out for a couple of hours. Monday was haircuts. In school, she wore her hair off her shoulders, but she had worn it longer for years now and decided to stick with that. Anita tried her best to convince Carol to get a bikini wax, but to no avail. Both picked up passport applications and completed those. Tuesday, after getting the passport photos and applying for the passports, Carol laid out in the orange bikini long enough to get a little red. She tanned easily. On Wednesday, Carol was a wreck with nerves. Anita spent much of the day reassuring her. Anita had called her father every day but never let on about the upcoming visit. She had not told him of the visit to Beth and Mr. Worth. She had asked him about his weekend plans, and he assured her he had none. During her Wednesday call, she told him she would be away for the weekend but would call if she got the chance. He asked about Carol every call. Carol slept little Wednesday night and was up packing and repacking. She put the orange bikini in the bag and removed it again a half-dozen times before finally stuffing it in the liner pocket. Carol was so nervous Thursday morning she had a screwdriver before her morning coffee. Anita drove them to the airport in her Fit, and the Mustang was safely put to bed in the garage. As soon as the plane was in the air, Carol had another screwdriver, then slept all the way to Phoenix. She was well rested now but still a nervous wreck. Something changed between Phoenix and Sacramento. The jitters were gone. Anita drove the rental and Carol looked at the fields and orchards they passed. They arrived in Cottonwood at 2:30. Anita drove to her father's house. It was unlocked. She and Carol put their things in their rooms, then Anita gave her the grand tour of the house. Carol loved it but agreed it did need a woman's touch. The areas that most impressed Carol were the kitchen and back patio. When they went into the master bedroom, Anita distracted her and walked her into the master bath. She fell in love with it immediately. The closet, walk-in shower, and huge tub were to die for. Leaving there and re-entering the master bedroom, Carol saw the picture wall. She looked at each picture and remembered most. At 4:15, they left for the clinic. "Ready, Mom? Are you sure this is a good idea?" "Yes, Mom. Today is the day you've both been waiting for all these years." "He's in that building, right?" 25 feet away. Judging from all the cars in the parking lot, he's probably seeing a patient. "We need to go inside." Alex said they locked the doors at 4:30. That's less than 5 minutes. Carol took a deep breath and got out of the car. They walked inside and found Alex waiting for them. "Lock the doors, Rhonda. This is Dr. C's last one." Rhonda went into the lobby and locked the doors. Alex peeked into the hallway. "Come with me. He's in room 1. She walked them quickly to room 3 and closed the door. "I'm Alex," she told Carol. "This is so exciting. God, what I wouldn't give to be a fly on the wall." "Alex, I'm Carol. Thank you for this." "My pleasure. We need to come up with a fake name. Any ideas?" "Maddie Burger," Anita replied. "No, something exotic." "Shanae Higginbottom?" Anita suggested again. "You're getting worse," Carol said. "How about Carol Arnold's?" "Perfect. What's your problem?" "She needs her lips checked out." Anita laughed. Alex and Carol laughed too. "Carol Arnold's needs her lips checked out. I like it," Alex said as she opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a white gown. She handed the paper gown to Carol. "Take off everything. Put the gown on with the opening in the back. You can put your clothes on the chair, then sit here on the exam table. Doc will be in shortly." Carol's jaw dropped. "You're kidding." "Nope. That's how he wants the patients prepped." "For a lip problem?" "Oh. Did you mean the upper lips?" Alex asked with a straight face. Anita couldn't hold the laughter back any longer. Alex joined her and took back the gown. "Your daughter put me up to that. Sorry. I couldn't resist." "Alex, you scared me to death," Carol said, laughing. "I'm going to hide Anita next door. He'll be in soon. You can sit wherever you want, but I'd suggest the exam table. We'll be outside when you come out." "Okay." Alex peeked again into the hallway, then took Anita next door. Carol sat nervously on the end of the exam table. Alex walked back to the office and waited. He walked in drying his hands just a few minutes later. Room 1 is gone. Are we done? 1 walked in a minute before 4:30. She's in 3. Carol Arnold's. She needs her lips checked out. What's wrong with her lips? Beats me, you're the doctor. Dean walked down the hall toward room 3. Alex followed about 10 feet behind and stepped into room 2. The door to room 3 was slightly ajar. Dean knocked once, then stepped inside. The room was empty. Dean stepped back out into the hallway. A few seconds later, he saw Alex step out of room 2. She initially had a grin on her face, but when she saw him, her expression faded. She must have gone to the ladies' room, he told her. Alex quickly pulled the door closed behind her. I'll check. Go finish up your last note. I'll let you know when she's back. Dean walked back to his office. Anita checked both bathrooms and found them empty. She did a quick scan of all the rooms. Carol wasn't there. Alex went to the front desk. Rhonda, did the blonde lady leave? Yeah, about 5 minutes ago. She seemed pretty upset. Alex went back to room 2 where Anita was waiting and stepped inside. When Anita saw the expression on Alex's face, her smile faded. What's wrong? Your mom left before he got to the room, she replied sadly. Oh no. She and Alex went through the lobby. Anita stepped out the door and looked toward the rental car, then scanned the parking lot. She turned back to Alex. She's not out here, Anita said anxiously. Alex turned her head to the desk. Rhonda, did you notice which way she went? Yeah. She took off running to the left, toward town. The clinic sat on the north edge of town. It was nearly a mile to anything except the Long Branch Saloon, which was about a block away, and a gas station a half-mile beyond that. There was no sidewalk, so she should still be visible from the road. Alex ran across the parking lot. Anita followed her. They stopped at the road and looked. I don't see her. She had to have gone to the Long Branch. There's no way she could have gotten to town yet. Alex, I need to go find her. Anita walked to the rental car and got in, then dialed her mother's number. Alex went back inside and to Dean's office. Is she ready? He asked as he stood. She left. Sit back down. We need to talk. Dean sat back in his chair and turned to her. Alex sat in the chair facing him. He could see on her face that she was troubled. Must be serious, he said. The last patient was meant to be a prank. It was Anita's mom, but she left before you got there. They're here. They were. Alex, what's going on? She told him of how she and Anita had set it all up and how Anita had been hiding in room 2. Where are they now? I think she must have gone to the Long Branch. Anita just left to find her. Okay, thanks. He turned back to the computer. What are you going to do? Alex asked. Finish up, then go to the saloon. Okay. I'll see you Monday. I hope it all works out. So do I. Thanks, Alex. Have a good weekend. Dean got in his truck about 10 minutes later and drove to the bar. There were only 2 other cars in the parking lot. Carol walked into the Long Branch and looked around. There was a man and a woman playing pool and a young woman behind the bar. Otherwise, it was empty. She walked to the far side and sat at a table with her back to everything and sat with her face in her hands. She was still crying. What can I get for you, ma'am? A woman asked. Carol didn't look up. Screwdriver. Double. Make that 2. The woman put 2 cocktail napkins on the table in front of her and left. Carol opened her purse and removed a 20, then laid it on the table. A few minutes later, the woman returned and set a glass on each napkin. She picked up the 20 and replaced it with a 10 and 6 ones. It's happy hour until 6. Anything to eat? No, thank you, Carol replied. She still had her face in her hands. Honey, are you okay? The woman asked. I'm fine, thanks. I'm a good listener if you need an ear. No, really, I'm okay. Just give me a wave. I'll be at the bar, she said, then walked away. Carol picked up a glass and drank the entire thing. Tasted like straight vodka. Her phone rang in her purse and she ignored it. She continued crying with her face in her hands, occasionally sipping her second drink. Anita walked in the bar and saw her mom, then walked to the table. She sat next to her. "Mom, just leave me alone. This was a mistake." The woman walked up. "What do you have?" she asked Anita. "Whatever she's having, I guess." "Two double screwdrivers?" she questioned. No. I'll have a long neck light," Anita replied. Carol chugged her second drink and held up her empty glass. "I'll have 2 more of these." The woman looked at Anita. Anita held up one finger, then moved her index finger and thumb together to signify a single shot. "House rules, ma'am. We can only serve drinks one at a time after the first order." "Fine," Carol replied. "How about a bite to eat with that?" she suggested. "No, just bring the drinks," Carol replied. The woman left and returned with their drinks. Carol chugged hers as soon as it had been set on the table. "I'll need another one," Carol told her. The woman looked at Anita again. Anita drew her finger across her own neck, signifying to cut her off. The server winked at her knowingly. "Coming right up." Anita handed her the 10 and waved for her to keep it. She returned to the bar. A moment later, she saw her dad step inside. "I'll be right back, Mom." She stood and headed toward him. The woman stepped out from behind the bar as she passed, carrying another drink. "Watered down OJ," she told Anita, smiling. "Thanks. She'll be out pretty soon," Anita replied. Dean had waited at the door. Anita kissed him on the cheek, then hugged him. "How is she?" "Crying." "What should I do, Anita?" "Dad, she's already had 2 doubles and a single. Mom gets sleepy after 2 drinks. She'll pass out pretty soon. Can you hang out by the truck? I'm going to need help getting her home." "Sure. Call or text. I'll be right outside." Anita nodded and went back to the table. When she sat, Carol looked up at her for the first time. "Call the airline and change my flight. I'm going home." Her speech was already slurred. "Mom," Anita began. "Just do it," she snapped. Anita picked up her phone and began typing. In a couple of minutes, she looked up. Carol had been watching. "The first available flight is tomorrow afternoon." "Fine. Book that, then find me a hotel for tonight," she mumbled. Anita resumed her typing and kept an eye on her mother. She was fading fast. In about 10 minutes, Carol was passed out on the table. She sent her dad a text. "She's out." A moment later, he walked in and to the table. He stroked Carol's blonde hair and teared. "I'll carry her to the truck. You get the doors." "Okay," she replied. Anita watched him as he gently sat her up, then effortlessly lifted her. He paused and looked at her face for a moment, then carried her toward the door. Anita ran ahead and opened the door to the parking area, and he carefully carried her outside. "Open both back doors," he told her. She opened the doors and he walked to the driver's side and sat her in the seat, then laid her over toward the middle. "Hold her legs. I'll go pull her in from the other side." Anita stepped up and held her limp legs. Dean went to the other side and pulled her toward him, then climbed inside to turn her toward the front seats on her side. Anita closed the door as her dad got out and closed the other. "I need to get a couple of things from the clinic. While I'm inside, you should stay with her in case she vomits." "Okay." Anita followed him back to the clinic. When he went inside, she sat in the truck with her mom. He was back in about 5 minutes carrying a plastic bag. He put it inside the truck and got in. Anita followed him back to the house. "You should put her in your bed. I'll need to stay with her, and the big bed will be better," Anita told him. Anita pulled back the bed covers, and he laid her ever so gently on the bed. Anita smiled, seeing him treat her like a fragile piece of glass. "I need one of your t-shirts," Anita said. "For what?" "I need to undress her. She can't sleep in her clothes." "Oh yeah." Dean went into his closet and grabbed a shirt, then set it on the table beside the bed. Anita already had her mother's shoes off. "Can you do this by yourself?" "Yeah. Give me about 10 minutes. He nodded and went back to the truck for the plastic bag, then set it on the floor outside his room and waited. Several minutes later, Anita called him back in. Carol was on her back wearing his t-shirt and still out. He set the bag next to the bed. "Let's put her on her side facing the bathroom. She'll be throwing up pretty soon and I don't want her aspirating it," he told his daughter. Anita pulled the sheet off her mother and together they turned her toward them. Dean put his hand behind her left knee and bent her leg to stabilize her, then moved her other leg back a little. When he let go, she stayed on her side. He slid his arm under her shoulders and raised her to move her right arm to a more comfortable position, then put his pillow under her head, then moved her left arm to a comfortable position in front of her. He reached into the plastic bag and got out 2 plastic and paper pads. When I lift her hips, you slide one of these under her bottom. He lifted her and Anita smoothed it out beneath her. Dean pulled the sheet up to about her mid-chest. We'll put this one under her head. After doing that, he put the rest of the pads on the table, then sat a plastic basin within easy reach of her and a second smaller kidney-shaped one on the bed in front of her. He put a second kidney-shaped one on the table. After surveying their work, he got a washcloth and towel and put them on the table. Anita had been sitting on the bed near her mother's legs watching him. How much did she have to drink? 5 shots total, and she's not a drinker. Any idea when she ate last? She had pretzels and a couple more screwdrivers several hours ago. She'll probably start vomiting pretty soon. Can you give her something to help it? No, afraid not. Once her body senses the overload, it'll empty the stomach to get rid of anything it can. She needs to get rid of it. I got some Zofran for her in the morning. That'll help settle her stomach if she needs it. You're good at this. Have you had a lot of drunk women in your bed? Anita asked. He grinned at her. Nope, she's my first. I've treated a few in the hospital. He brought 2 chairs next to the bed, placing one right beside the bed and the other facing the bed but about 2 feet away. He sat next to the bed. Anita took the other chair. Dean stroked Carol's hair lovingly. Do you have something so I can tie her hair back? He asked. Yeah, I'll get it. Anita ran to her room and was back in a moment. She brushed her mom's hair back and put it in a pony. Dean was holding Carol's hand. I used to hold this hand a lot, he said. She told me. Dad, I'm sorry. This isn't the way this was supposed to be. It's okay, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. We went to see Beth Tucker and Mr. Worth last Friday. They told us everything. Did she believe them? Yes, she really cried though. That's what convinced her to come. I'm glad she knows anyway. Dad, you know what she's still struggling with, don't you? Yes. Will you tell me? Anita, that has to come from her. I will tell you that it isn't as bad as she thinks it is, and it certainly wasn't her fault. She's afraid we'll hate her for it. We won't. Her part in this was to take the sperm that she thought I had freely given, use it to get pregnant and have our daughter. Everything except not telling me where it was going was on the up and up. What happened afterward is why she's so upset. But none of it was her fault. She still blamed herself. Carol started retching. Dean moved the small basin under her mouth. When the basin was about half full, Anita handed him the second one and took the other to the toilet and poured it out. She rinsed it and repeated the steps with the now partially full second basin. Carol continued for several more minutes with dry heaves. Dean stayed by her with the basin and massaged her neck. She finally stopped. Wet the washcloth. I'll wipe her face. Anita returned with the washcloth. Dad, I can do this. If it's all the same to you, I'd really like to do it myself. Not a very romantic way to see her. No, but even doing this is better than the last 27 years, and it may be my only chance to be with her. He wiped her mouth and chin. Anita rinsed the cloth and brought it back. Think you could rustle up a sandwich or something? He asked. After sitting here helping Mom vomit, you want to eat? Dad, that's disgusting. He chuckled. When you work in healthcare, you just get used to it. Mothers are the same way. Have you ever been around a couple of mothers and one of the kids poops? Some of the other moms will jump at the chance to change the poopy diaper. Somewhere along the line, it went from disgusting to a bonding act. A bonding between moms and a bonding between a mother and a child. And here you sit. Mom just puked on your hand, and you're asking for a sandwich to bond with her. He laughed. Not exactly. She did get vomit on my hand. Yes, in a way it's bonding. I care enough to want to be here helping her. I plan to wash my hands before eating the sandwich that I requested because I haven't eaten all day and I'm hungry. If your mom heard about me helping, which she won't because you aren't going to tell her, she would see it as bonding. Why am I not going to tell her? It would embarrass her. Please go fix me a sandwich? He asked. Weird. What kind of sandwich do you want? Whatever you come up with. Anything to drink? Water. Would you like lemon? No, but thank you for asking, he replied, smiling. Anita left the room. Dean sat there looking at Carol's face. I've missed you, he told her. Carol, I want you to know that what happened wasn't your fault. You had nothing to do with it. It all turned out fine. We have an amazing daughter thanks to you. Anita stood in the doorway listening. She had returned with his water. She's as beautiful as you are. She's loving and caring and lights up the room just by walking in. Just like you always did. I loved her the minute I saw her, and when I saw that paper that said I was her father, I was the happiest man alive. Thank you for that wonderful gift. I'm sorry I hurt you when I left. I just couldn't allow them to hurt you. I had to leave, and walking out that door and out of your life was the hardest thing I've ever done. I knew before I even saw you in the drugstore that you wouldn't face me. After what you thought I had done, I didn't blame you. Anita told me that you talked to Mr. Worth, so now you know the rest of the story. You need to forgive what they did. They just wanted what they thought was best for you. They loved you. If you realize that it's a small step to forgiveness. Took me a long time to figure that out, but I have forgiven them now. Don't let it eat at you like I did. Dean had tears running down his cheeks. Anita was behind him and she couldn't see his face, but she heard his tears in his words. After tonight, I'll quit interfering in your life. I can't and won't give up Anita. She's my daughter and I need her a lot more than she needs me. I pray that you find someone that loves you as much as I do, that can and will be by your side every step of the way. You deserve that. Anita's still going to push to get us together. Thank God she hasn't had to experience the pain I caused you. Forgive her for that. In time, she'll stop pushing. Carol, I love you and I will forever. Maybe in another lifetime we'll find each other again. He leaned over and kissed Carol softly on the cheek, then stood and walked to the bathroom. Dean hadn't seen it, but when he had kissed Carol, a smile came across her face. Anita walked into the room and set the water on the table for him, then returned to the kitchen. Dean returned to the chair after washing his face. Carol started retching again. Anita returned about 20 minutes later and set his plate on the table. Go wash up. I hope grilled ham and cheese is okay. It was either that or peanut butter. I love grilled ham and cheese. Thanks. He stood and kissed her cheek, then went to the bathroom and washed his hands and face again. Sitting back in the chair, he picked up his plate. Where's yours? I ate in the kitchen. If she started throwing up while I was eating, you'd have had both of us to bond with. Dean grinned at her and started eating the sandwich. That hits the spot. He was most of the way through the second half when Carol vomited again. He held the sandwich in his mouth as he tended her. When it passed, he finished the sandwich. Dad, how can you do that? What? Eat while she's puking on you. She only got a little on my leg. It's not a big deal. You're a sick man, she told him. At least I'm not hungry anymore. Will you stay with her while I shower and change? Sure, take your time. He went into the bathroom and showered. Dean shaved and brushed his teeth, then put on a pair of shorts and a camp shirt. When he walked back into the bedroom, Anita moved to the seat away from the bed. He sat next to Carol again and took her hand. Dad. Yes, sweetheart. I heard what you said to Mom. Okay. That was very loving. But you got part of it wrong. He turned to her. Her eyes moistened. What part? I'll never stop. I may never get you back together, but I will never stop trying. Anita. No. You listen. It's my turn to talk. You didn't think you'd ever see her again, but I told you that I'd bring her here. She may be a little worse for the wear, but she's here. I told you I'd get Mr. Worth to tell her the truth. I did that too. You walked out on her once, and we all know you did it to protect her. You tried to talk to her once, and she wouldn't let you, so you gave up. You just fucking gave up. She knows the truth now. You can't give up. If you love her like you say you do, you'll do everything in your power to win her back. Sometimes you have to fight for things you want. You fought for her when you were a teenager. Mom's worth fighting for. Mom has something to tell you. She came 2,500 miles to do that. Yeah, she got cold feet and ran away. In the morning when she wakes up, you're going to have a choice to make. You both are. You can do nothing. and both go your own separate miserable ways, or you can look each other in the eye and say to each other what you've both said to me. Dad, I don't know if Mom can tell you whatever this sin, for lack of a better word, is without your help. She needs to tell you. She needs to be able to let it go. Mom's ready, but you may have to be the one to make her say it. You may have to be the one to make her cry one last time. When I was 10, I got appendicitis. When the doctor checked me, he pushed right where it hurt the most. He did that to find out what the problem was. I cried. God, it hurt so bad when he did it, but then he fixed it. He found out what the problem was and fixed it. You're a doctor. You understand how it works. You may have to make it hurt to fix it. What do either of you gain if you don't try? What do either of you have to lose if you do? Dad, I'm begging you. Do this for me. Do it for Mom. Do it for all of us. It's what we all want and what we all need. Now you can talk. I've said what I needed to say. Dean didn't know what to say. Anita was right. He fought with Worth and Tucker. They won a single battle and he wrote off the rest of the war. He had surrendered when he should have regrouped and fought on. You're right, Anita. I dropped the ball. I'll do what you suggested, but I need to do it in my own way. How long are you staying? We have to leave here about 1 on Sunday. The plane is at 4 in Sacramento. Mom told me to get her flight sooner. She thinks she's going home tomorrow afternoon, but I never changed the flight, she said, grinning. He smiled. Good work. I may need your help. You'll know when the time comes. Carol and I will have our face-to-face tomorrow. Okay? Okay. I love you so much, he told her. I love you too, Dad. They held each other again until Carol interrupted them by another round vomiting. Without her father knowing it, she got 2 good photos of him holding her mother's head as she was retching. How long is she going to keep doing this? The episodes are shorter and farther apart now, and she's just vomiting bile. Probably just once or twice more. She's going to feel like crap when she wakes up. He chuckled. I don't envy that. We've got her covered. I've got a good treatment plan for a hangover. What is it? Tylenol for the headache, Zofran for nausea, water to rehydrate her brain and hair of the dog. Does it work? In theory, it should. I don't drink enough to get hangovers. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. You've never had a hangover? Anita asked. Lots of them, but not in a long time. I figured out what caused them and stopped doing it. They sat there talking until well after dark. Anita yawned. Go get some sleep. I'll sit with her, he said. Are you sure? I am. I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be. Anita kissed him. I'll come and get you when she starts to stir. It should probably be you here when she wakes up. Call me if you need me. Promise. Anita showered and went to bed. Dean put everything away except the kidney basins, then set out 2 Tylenol and a Zofran tablet at the bedside. He dimmed the bedroom lights and turned a single light on in the bathroom. Carol vomited again about an hour later, just once. He cleaned the basin and returned to her side. As he sat watching her sleep, he stroked her hair and held her hand. You are so beautiful, he told her, and kissed her cheek. He really tried to stay awake. Even splashed water on his face several times, but finally lost the battle. Anita woke and looked at her phone. It was just after 4. She walked to the room. Her mother was still asleep. Dean was leaning forward with just his head on the bed. Their faces were just inches apart, facing each other. Carol's hand rested on his cheek and she was smiling but still asleep. Anita went back to her room and got her phone, then came back, turned off the flash, and took several pictures, then went back to her room. She sent a picture via text to both parents, then fell asleep again. Carol opened her eyes briefly a short time later and saw his face inches from hers. She smiled, closed her eyes, and went back to her dream. Dean woke just before 6 when Carol stirred. Her hand still rested on his cheek. Very carefully, he slid his head off the bed and splashed water on his face, then brushed his teeth. Carol stirred again as he brushed. He walked to the kitchen and made a screwdriver, then woke Anita. She's waking up. What time is it? She asked, as she sat up on the side of the bed. About 6. I'll make some coffee. There are 3 tablets on the table. Have her take the 2 that look alike and chase them with this. She needs to drink the whole thing. The other tablet is for the nausea. Just have her let it dissolve under her tongue. She needs lots of water to rehydrate. Got it. Anita went to the other guest room and grabbed her mother's suitcase, then took it to the master. She set the bag on the foot of the bed. Dean brought her a cup of coffee a moment later. He kissed Anita on the top of the head before leaving. Anita was looking at her phone when Carol opened her eyes. She smiled when she saw Anita and began to sit up. I had the most wonderful day. Oh God, somebody shoot me? She said, holding the sides of her head. Anita grabbed the Tylenol and held them out to her. For the headache. Carol took the pills as Anita picked up her drink. She put the pills in her mouth and took a drink to wash them down, then took a second. About half the drink was still in the glass when she tried to hand it back. Drink the rest of it. Carol didn't argue and drank it down. Anita picked up the other tablet and offered it to her. What's that? It'll settle your stomach. Put it under your tongue. Carol, feeling too bad to argue, did as she was told. What was in the drink? Hair of the dog, OJ, and vodka. Just what I need, more poison. Are we in a hotel? Dad's house. You slept here in his bed last night. Carol looked down at the t-shirt, then raised the sheet. Oh God, we didn't? Anita grinned. No, you didn't. You were smashed, so we put you to bed. Who undressed me? I did. Dad, being the gentleman he is, left the room. Carol walked into the bathroom and closed the door. The toilet flushed a moment later and she returned and sat on the side of the bed. How much did I drink? 2 doubles and a single. I remember drinking the first drink. That's it. Anita, did I say or do anything last night I'm going to regret? Nothing other than tell me to change your flight home to today. Carol frowned. What time is the flight? 4. Anita felt fine with her answer. The flight was scheduled for 4, but 2 days from now. Oh, what time is it now? Almost 7. Did Dee and I talk? Mom, you passed out in the bar. He carried you out and brought you home. You've been out of it until a few minutes ago. Well, thanks for taking care of me. I undressed you. Dad's the one that's been taking care of you all night. Except for about 20 minutes to shower, he never left your side. He stayed here with me? All night. Carol was quiet for a long time. I put your bag on the bed. You should start feeling better soon. Go ahead and get cleaned up. Dad said to use the big bathroom. Oh, and he also recommended you drink lots of water. I'm gonna go have some more coffee. I'll be back in a little while. Before Carol could reply, Anita was gone. Carol went back to the bathroom and rinsed the glass, then filled it with tap water. She drank the entire glass, then filled it again. She was feeling better. Carol sat back on the bed and looking around noticed the picture wall. The dream came into her mind. Dean was talking to her. His voice had been soft and loving. She couldn't remember his words, but she knew they made her feel happy and peaceful. Then he was saying goodbye. Not the kind of goodbye you say routinely. This was a forever goodbye. Tears ran down her cheeks and she covered her face sobbing. She had ruined everything. She knew it. Oh God, please no, she said out loud. Anita had gone to the family room. Her father was sitting on the patio. She poured her cup of coffee and joined him. How's she doing? She took the medicine and the screwdriver without any argument. I left her to get cleaned up. Hope you don't mind, but I told her you said to use the big bath. No, that's fine. Dad. She thinks her flight was changed to today. Why would she think that? He asked, smiling. Weird, huh? Very. Thanks for the picture. You're welcome. Couldn't resist. You both looked so peaceful. Anita, I don't know how this is going to end, but thank you for all you've done. It was a labor of love, Dad. Any plans for the day? Talk to your mother, and I'm supposed to pick up the boat at 2. What did you get? Pontoon? 24 feet. It's geared for fishing and relaxing. I think you'll like it. Moonlight cruise this evening. Sure. Maybe grab a pizza and have dinner on the lake. That sounds like fun. They sat together quietly for a while. Anita looked at her phone. It had been 45 minutes since she had left her mom. I'm going to check on Mom. Need anything? No, I'm going to stay out here for a while. Anita went back inside and after putting her cup in the dishwasher made her way to the master. Carol was just closing her suitcase. Feeling better? Much better. The hangover is pretty well gone. She set her bag on the floor. Help me make the bed? Anita walked to the side closest the bathroom and Carol went to the unused side. They both put the pillows on the foot of the bed, then straightened the rest. Once completed, Carol sat on the foot of the bed facing the picture wall. She patted the bed next to her. Sit with me. Anita sat beside her mother. Did Dee tell you what these pictures were? He told me a couple of them. I can figure out most of them, but the one with me running has me puzzled. That was date night. You were running to the side of the chapel to sneak a few kisses. That was pretty much every Sunday for the first 2 years. Well, when he wasn't on restriction. That was a lot, huh? About half the time. I used to get mad at him for it. I thought it was his fault. What's the brick building, Mom? That's the back door to the school gym. Legion Day was like a carnival. The American Legion did that is in September. We were 14 and had been seeing each other for maybe 6 weeks. It was one of the few times we ever got to spend more than an hour together. Dee asked me to walk to the track field with him, and on the way we stopped right there by that door. That's where we kissed for the first time. Neither of us had ever been kissed before. Awkward. No, it wasn't the best kiss he ever gave me, but we practiced every chance we got. He was an expert in no time. Who's the girl in front of that building? Carol chuckled. That's Jeanette. The building is the dorm she and I lived in. She was a freshman with Dee. Since I was in 7th grade, we weren't allowed to go together on date night. Dee took her instead sometimes. You were okay with him dating someone else? In that case, yes. After the movie was over, the daters came back to the girls' dorms and made out for 25 minutes. Jeanette and I would switch places and I got him. Well, you devious little. Jeanette was the one that came up with the idea. She's one of the few people from the home I'd like to see again. She was the other girl that knew about Dad's back. Yes, her and Dee's sister, Debbie. I had a dream last night that Dee and I were lying down together face to face. Where's your phone, Mom? She reached into her purse and pulled it out. Check out the message I sent you this morning. Carol opened the text and looked at the picture. It really happened? About 4 this morning. Only his head was on the bed. He fell asleep in the chair. I also dreamed that he talked to me for a long time. He was so sweet and loving. But then he told me goodbye. It sounded like he meant forever. Mom, that happened too. He did say he wasn't going to interfere in your life anymore. Then he wished you the best of everything and told you he'd love you forever. He's giving up? That's what he said. Carol started crying. Mom, he's sitting right outside that door on the patio. All you have to do is open that door and step through it. There are 2 ways out of this room. The French doors lead to the airport. The other door leads to a man that loves you more than anything in this world. Think it over. Anita stood and left the room. Carol sat crying on the bed. She looked at the picture wall, then at her bag laying at her feet, and the French doors. Carol looked again at the photo on her phone, then again at her bag. She stood and walked into the bathroom and touched up her eye makeup. Carol pensively stepped through the door, then closed it quietly behind her. Dean was sitting on the bench on the dock with his back to her. His fishing pole was in the holder to his left with the line in the water. She moved slowly down the ramp toward the dock and stopped about 5 feet behind him. He felt the floating dock shift as she stepped on it. Getting any bites? She asked, nervously. Only mosquitoes so far, he replied without turning around. Maybe you're not holding your head right. No, I don't think that's it. Carol realized that talking to him was easier without looking at his face and relaxed a little. She took a step closer. Maybe they stole your bait. Not a chance. Those fish can be pretty shifty. You never know. Carol was smiling now. Look for yourself. They didn't steal it. He still hadn't turned to her. Carol stepped up to his left and picked up his pole. She reeled in the line and saw the bare hook. They got your bait, Dee, she said with a knowing smile. No, they didn't. I didn't put any bait on it. What kind of fish do you expect to catch with a bare hook? Suicidal fish. Is that a California thing? No idea. It wasn't mentioned in the fishing rules they gave me when I got my license. Must not be a limit on them then. She cast the line back into the water and put the pole back in the holder. That's what I was thinking. What are you going to do with it when you catch one? She asked. Talk to it. Explain how wonderful life can be if you let it. Hopefully that'll help it feel better about itself. Think that'll work? I don't know. I think it's worth a shot. I know a person who might benefit from a talk like that. There's plenty of room here on the bench. If they'd like to join me. Carol walked over and sat next to him on the bench with her hands folded in her lap. Both looked at the water rather than each other. Anita had been watching and listening from the patio and was smiling cautiously. Dean took Carol's hand. She looked at their hands together, remembering how they had held each other that way so many times before. Felt safe. She felt loved. Neither spoke, and they sat quietly for several minutes. I heard of a boy once, he began, that met a girl. He fell in love with her the moment he saw her. She was a beauty too, but that wasn't why he fell in love with her. He felt a connection to her, like she was part of him. Did she feel the connection too? Carol asked. Yes, she did. Some people, grown-ups, did everything they could to break them up. They thought the boy was bad news, but they just adored the girl. Was he bad news? No, he was really a pretty good guy. It took the grown-ups almost 3 years, but they finally succeeded breaking them up. How'd they do that? They convinced the girl that he really was a bad guy. But he wasn't, she replied. No, but now she thought he was. After they broke up, he wrote her letters, but she never got them. The grown-ups saw to that. They didn't have email and cell phones back then, so letters were about the only way to reach her. Anita had stealthily moved onto the ramp and was listening to them. They had both heard her. That must have been a long time ago. A very long time ago. Even before our daughter, who could hear better if she'd come down here and quit sneaking around. Anita got up and walked to where they were, then sat cross-legged at their feet. She looked at them with a slightly embarrassed smile. Her parents smiled at her. They still hadn't looked at each other. Please go on. I'd like to hear more, Carol said. Well, the boy decided he would try to talk to the girl, but she was so hurt and now convinced he was a bad guy she just couldn't face him. The boy gave up, which was a very foolish thing to do. His daughter pointed that out many years later. He had a daughter? Beautiful girl. She was the spitting image of her mother too. Smart as a whip. She was known to stretch the truth on occasion, but she was a precious jewel. Both of her parents just loved her to no end. Anyway, he had given up trying to get the girl back but kept on loving her. For a long time, he prayed for God to let him die so the pain of losing her would go away. God had other plans. One day he realized that he didn't want to die anymore. What caused the change? Carol asked. It happens later in life. The boy went to medical school and became a doctor. Years later, a young woman came to his office claiming he was her father. They ran a test and it turned out she was right. Did that make him happy? Asked Carol. It was probably the happiest day of his life. It turned out that the woman he had loved all those years was her mother. He was surprised, to say the least. You bet, since they've never been together, Carol replied. Dean chuckled. Who's telling the story, you or me? Yes, I'm sorry, Carol said, smiling. The daughter found out from him, now a man, that her mother had been lied to about him being a bad man. She and her mother confronted the people who told these lies, and those people eventually admitted the truth. This made the daughter and her mother, who had grown into a strong and beautiful woman, think that maybe the boy wasn't a bad person after all. The mother wanted to be reunited with him, but she had a secret that kept her in the dark. Surely there must be something challenging to share, Carol added. Mother thought so. A boy and his daughter have solved part of the mystery. Years ago, a guy and a girl planned to start a family, but things went south. A mutual friend lied and took advantage of the situation, causing a lot of harm. When the mother realized what had happened, she was devastated. The poor girl must have felt awful, Carol said quietly. Yes, for years she blamed herself, even though she didn't know the whole truth. It was made worse by the fact that the boy was then badly hurt. It was an accident, but it changed everything. He ended up in the hospital and fought for his life. When the mother found out, she was crushed. Things were supposed to be different, a simple plan that turned into something much darker. But against all odds, the boy survived. Tears came to Carol's eyes. Dean paused for a moment before continuing. When the boy woke up, he remembered a dream he had while he was unconscious. In the dream, the girl he loved was standing next to him, holding his hand and crying. She was telling him that she loved him and begging him not to leave. That dream gave him a reason to live again, and he clung to that hope. But he didn't know it wasn't a dream. She was there, even if only for a moment. Carol was crying. Dean and Anita held her hands gently. Eventually the boy recovered, and although he never learned the whole truth of what had happened then, he knew one thing. He still loved the girl. As time went on, secrets were revealed and they realized that no matter what, the love they had shared all those years ago was still alive. Now they just had to figure out how to move on. "And what happened to them?" asked Carol. Dean smiled. "Well, that's the way it is now. They both know they have a wonderful daughter, and they both know that the love they once had is still there. It remains to be seen if they can rebuild their lives together." "I think they can do it," Carol said confidently. "I think they'd be fools not to." "He already does that," Dean replied. "He's going to have to cope with a woman's touch around the house. He'll have to accept the rearranging of things in the kitchen cabinets." "Carol, have you ever looked inside the kitchen cabinets?" he asked. "No, but I'll tell you up front, they're not the way they need to be." "You know that already?" "Yep. He'll have to adjust to the idea that in fishing contests that both the girl and their daughter are better fisherpersons than he is. He's going to have to share his bed with the girl." "What are the pluses for the boy?" he asked. "Those are pluses, Dad. He's also going to need a real coffee pot." "Is that it?" Dean asked. "Oh, that's just the beginning," Carol replied. "Don't forget about birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries. He's going to have to remember those and buy gifts." Anita added, "Covered, April 1st and November 14th. "You're off to a good start," Carol replied. Dean had been smiling the entire time that Carol had been talking. Anita had been on the verge of laughter as Carol went on with her role. Then Carol got quiet for a moment. "Thank you for helping me admit what I've been hiding for so long. And thank you both for loving me. Dee, it's so easy to talk about suddenly turning our lives into this fantasy we both have. But the reality is that the Dee and Carol we know are only 16 years old. We don't know each other now. It's important, no, it's imperative that before we go jumping into anything, we take our time and get to know each other again. Dee, I was married before, and even though you don't strike me as an abusive drunk like he turned out to be, I'm scared. I need us to take our time to move forward with realistic expectations. On the surface, you seem like the perfect man. I'm far from the perfect woman. Sometimes I get bitchy over things that have no importance 10 minutes later. Sometimes I run my mouth before checking in with my brain. There are occasions when I just want to scream at this crazy world we live in for not being how I think it should be. I'm opinionated and stubborn. When it comes to our daughter, she's my top priority. If someone hurts Anita, they've got me to deal with, and I'm fierce when I need to be. She's been my whole world since the moment she was conceived. She's everything to me. You have to understand that. I'm already a bit jealous of how quickly and easily she's come to love you. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled by that. But inside, I don't know. I guess I'm just rambling now. Carol, I have 3 weeks' experience at being a father. What I've done so far is very little. Together, we aren't just mother and father, we become parents. Something neither of us had the opportunity to experience. I think parents need to work together toward a common goal of showing by example the way to be good people. They don't have to be perfect, thank God. You've had that responsibility by yourself all her life, and from what I've seen so far, you kicked ass. I'm not perfect, not even close. I've spent my life trying to become the type of man that you'd be proud to walk down the street with and call your husband and the father of your child. There's no hidden me. I'm what you see is what you get. I try as much as possible to be an open book, but there are pages in that book that are only open to you, no one else. I'm fine with taking things slowly. Carol, do you realize that we've done almost nothing together? Driving you here from the Long Branch was the first time we ever rode in a car together. We've never sat down and had a meal together. Almost anything we do from this point forward is going to be a first time for us. I want us to do it all, but we don't have to commit to doing it all at once. I agree, let's take our time. I want us both to be sure that being together is what we want. Anita, what time is it? Carol asked. Pushing noon, why? I've got a plane to catch, remember? Mom, I kinda didn't change your reservation. What? Your flight home is on Sunday. I never changed it. You lied. Technically, no. You told me to change it, but I never actually told you I did. Anita, I asked you just this morning what time my flight was. You told me 4 o'clock today. No, I told you 4 o'clock. You just assumed it was today. It's 4 o'clock Sunday. You devious little. Our daughter got more from you than just the dimples, Mr. Coates. Are you insinuating? He began. I'm not insinuating anything. I'm stating a fact. You both have the uncanny ability to take the truth and twist it into a pretzel while keeping it the truth, Carol replied, grinning. Look at the bright side, Mom. Now you'll have more time to spend getting to know Dad. You might even have a chance to wear your orange bikini. Anita, I am not wearing that bikini, Carol said, blushing. So, what are we doing now that we have the whole weekend? Anita asked. I know we've got to go to the Long Branch and pick up Mom's clothes. Carol's eyes widened. Anita, you're lying. Dee, she's lying, isn't she? She's just teasing you. I grabbed your clothes on the way out, he replied. God, what a couple of liars. What am I getting myself into? So, what are we doing? Carol asked. I'm supposed to pick up the boat at 2. We need some groceries. Otherwise, I'm open. Do you have a grocery list? Carol asked. No, I just wing it. Figures. Come on. Let's go see what you've got in the kitchen. Dean and Carol walked hand in hand back to the house. Anita followed them with a big grin on her face. Just before going inside, he stopped and turned to Carol. I know we need to move slowly, but can you give me an idea when it would be okay to kiss you? He asked. How did you know when we were 14? I felt like it was something I needed to do. When you get that feeling, go for it. She smiled. Dean stepped closer and put his arms around her, then pulled her to him. They looked into each other's eyes, then kissed. Anita took several pictures with her phone. When they hadn't come up for air after a few minutes, Anita cleared her throat. Don't mind me. Even though I've never been hugged by my mom and dad at the same time, I'm just fine standing here alone, she said, sarcastically. Dean pulled her to them. He and Carol put their arms around her and pulled her in to complete the group. I need to go get ready. Can you two control yourselves while I'm gone? Anita asked. We'll try, Carol replied. Anita disappeared inside. She did want to get cleaned up, but she also wanted her parents to have some time alone. Carol and Dean went into the kitchen. Carol looked through the cabinets and the refrigerator. I did pretty good, huh? He asked. Actually, you did very good. I'll only have to rearrange about 90% of it. 90%? About that. Where do you keep your food? Most of it's still at the grocery store. On the way here from the airport, I saw a lot of fruit and vegetable farms. Do you ever buy direct? It's more fresh, she asked. Most of the produce. There's a small farmer's market near the country club on Saturday morning, but it's small. Chico has a big one on Saturdays. Is that where Chico State College is? Carol asked. Uh-huh. I'm surprised you've heard of it. That's where Anita wanted to do her master's. We just didn't have the money, so she's staying local. Why don't we go to the farmer's market, then check out the college tomorrow? She'd love that. How far is it? Just over an hour away. Not far at all. Why do I get the feeling you'd like her to move out here? I'd love her to move here, and you with her. Slow down, Dee. We just had our first kiss 15 minutes ago. You and I don't have a timetable. Anita does. School starts in September. You've been a bachelor for a long time. Do you think you could adapt to 2 women living here? I have no doubt of that. They sat down and made a grocery list together, then sat on the patio talking. Anita joined them a short time later. They all got in the truck and headed to where the boat was to be picked up and stopped for lunch on the way. It took about an hour before they pulled away with the boat in tow, then stopped for groceries and gas in Cottonwood. They dropped off the groceries and put them away before going to the boat ramp. Carol had worked at a boat dealership as one of her part-time jobs and knew a lot about boats. Dean knew almost nothing. After launching, Carol and Anita drove the boat to the dock. As Anita had mentioned earlier, they ordered pizza and enjoyed it while having a sunset cruise. Anita went to bed early, mostly to give them time together. Dean and Carol spent the rest of the evening together on the patio. When Anita got up on Saturday morning, her parents weren't up. She made coffee, then peeked into her mother's room. The bed hadn't been slept in. She smiled and walked to the patio. It was about an hour later when her parents joined her. "You two must have gotten more sun than I thought yesterday. You both seem to have a glow about you this morning," Anita told them. "Shut up, Anita," Carol said. Dean stayed quiet but did turn a little red. "Dad, does that bear ever come over here by the house? I could have sworn I heard something moaning or grunting last night." "Shut up, Anita," Carol told her, smiling. "Not that I'm aware of. Maybe it was the gators. It's mating season, you know." Carol rolled her eyes. "Yeah, I assumed that," Anita replied. "I'll bet with all the wildlife there's a lot of mating going on around here." "Oh, Anita, come here. I've got to show you something," Carol said, excitedly. Carol got up and hurried down the ramp. Anita followed her. Carol stopped next to the ladder on the dock. "Right here on the first step. Isn't that cool?" Anita went to the ladder and looked. Carol gave her a push toward the water. Anita grabbed at the ladder to keep from falling in the lake but missed. Instead, she caught her mother's arm and they both went in the lake. They came up laughing. Dean was roaring with laughter and walked to them. "Help me out, Dee," Carol said, holding up her hand next to the dock. He put one hand on the ladder rail and reached for her and found himself, with Carol's help, in the lake with them. The women were roaring this time and he soon joined them. They laughed and played together for a few minutes, then Dean went inside to get towels. "Are you glad we came, Mom?" "Yes, baby. Other than being older, he hasn't changed." "Are we doing anything today?" "Farmer's market, then checking out Chico State." "Are you kidding? Really?" Anita asked excitedly. "Yep, it's about an hour away. You could commute and live here." "Are you coming?" "We'll see. It isn't just pick up and move for me. I'd have to sell the house first. Dee and I are going to take our time with this. And you've got to see if the bed's comfortable too." "Oh, Anita," Carol replied. Dean returned and handed them towels. Everyone got cleaned up and ready. Dean and Carol shared the master bath. Then Dean fixed sausage and eggs for breakfast for them all. It was mid-morning when they headed to Chico. Carol loved the farmer's market and they picked up a lot of fruits and vegetables. Anita was enamored with Chico State, and after they talked it over, she decided to apply on Monday when she got back to Ohio. On the way back to the house, Anita gave her dad suggestions she had on the Caribbean trip. Carol was in full agreement. They would get on the internet that evening to select the resort. Dean also suggested they drop off the rental car in Redding today, so he could drive them to Sacramento. Carol tried to talk him out of it, but half-heartedly. As soon as they were back at the house, Anita got on the computer to look at resorts and locations. Carol started cooking and Dean rarely left her side. "It seems like you're fixing a lot," he told her. "I am. We can put it in the freezer so you can quit eating out all the time. I'll put meals together for you. Move it to the fridge in the morning and pop it in the microwave for dinner, lunches too. You don't have to do that, you know." She kissed him. "I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to." "Thank you, that's very thoughtful." Anita came running in the room. "How do you feel about a bungalow over the water? The Tahiti style?" Dean asked. "Yes, Sandals has them in Antigua now. Adults only." "How much?" Carol asked. "It's pretty steep, Mom." "Sounds great to me." "How steep?" Carol asked. "Babe, don't even think about cost. This is something I'd really like us to do," Dean told her. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "Go for it, Anita," Carol said. "I need your plastic, Dad. Add my flight to Columbus from here, a couple of days before, and we'll leave together from Ohio. I'll need a flight back too." Book mine too and from Sacramento. He handed her his charge card, then whispered to her. Book first-class flights and a really nice bungalow. Got it. This is going to be so much fun. Anita ran back to the computer, and about 45 minutes later returned with the full itinerary. It was perfect. She gave the charge card back to her dad. Any interest in checking out the Long Branch this evening? Anita asked. Is that where I made a fool of myself? Carol asked. Kind of, she replied. Thanks, but no thanks, Carol answered. Anita, the country club has entertainment on Saturdays sometimes. Their schedule is on the fridge. Anita looked at the schedule. Mason-Dixon Jarheads from 8 to 12 tonight. Any clue what they play? Country. They aren't half bad either. Mom, what do you think? Do I get to see Dee's moves? Yeah, if I get to see yours, he replied. Did you bring your hat and boots, Mom? No hat. I brought my short boots. The big ones wouldn't fit in my bag. We need to eat first. Dee, can you set the table, please? I can handle that. They had dinner, then everyone got dressed. None of them wore hats. Carol and Anita were amazing on the dance floor. Dean didn't do too bad either. Dean and Carol each nursed one drink all evening. This was an older crowd and mostly couples or groups, and Anita did accept a few slow songs, but mainly shared her dad. Anita went right to bed after they returned to the house. There was a gentle rain as Dean and Carol sat out under the covered patio. How are you coping with your two women? I'm loving it. How are you coping? Dee, I'm having to hold myself back, so I don't rush things. This has been the best 2 days I can remember in a long time. For me too. My face hurts from smiling so much. I think I'm going to take a bubble bath. Want to wash my back? I just happened to be available for that. Carol ran the water and was just stepping in when he came in and sat on the floor next to the tub. Oh, I'm in heaven. I always wanted a tub like this. I remember. You wanted one when we got our house. It was one of the big selling points when I bought this one. You really bought the furniture too. I saw the pictures. Have you looked in the wooden box yet? The one in the bedroom? Aha. No, what's in it? Look when you're done here. Do you realize that in the last 2 days we've spent more time together than we did in 3 months at the home? Carol asked. Probably in 6 months. We didn't get much time, did we? Not much. One of us was always on restriction. I'll admit I deserved some of it, but not much. Mr. Worth told me. I still can't imagine how you kept your back a secret. It wasn't easy. Next time I see Debbie or Jeanette, I'm going to kick their butts. They should have told me. Carol, you would have dumped me. Probably. Have you really forgiven them? Completely. You can too, babe. I will. I'm not there yet, though. You gonna wash my back or sit there gawking at me all night? He lathered up his hands and began washing from the neck down the backside. Are you really a doctor? Yep. Then you should know that where you're washing isn't my back. Oh, I know exactly what I'm touching. Are you getting fresh with me, sir? Aha. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I may have to keep you. I hope so. I love you, Carol. I know. I love you too.